Welcome, BBCers, to episode number 229 of the Broken by Concept podcast, the number one solo queue educational and motivational podcast. Today is the ADC, the AD Carry extravaganza episode. We've got Charlie here, head coach of our ADC Academy, living and breathing ADC for the last couple of weeks, months. I mean, Charlie is literally higher ranked than us right now in solo queue, Curtis. Currently sitting at 121 on the O server Grandmaster. Curtis and I are literally just master players at the moment.
Yep.
So Charlie's he's overtaking us.
Thanks for bringing that one up, Nathan.
Yeah, well, Curtis, we always say we need to accept our current level of skill, and that's where we're at right now.
That's right.
All right, so sort of the structure, the format of this episode, what we're going to do. We're going to start off with champions first. People love talking about champions. We're going to get Charlie's thoughts on champions. Curtis and I have... we've played the game for a long time. We have a lot of experience playing with these champs.
We also have a lot of narratives about these champions.
Yeah.
People hate AD carries.
Yeah.
This is going to be a mid lane narrative on ADCs. Like, this is going to be good because it's your perspective on ADCs, on your team and enemy team, and my team and the enemy team. I have lots of ADCs that hit we were literally talking about Misfortune, which maybe we'll start with, about some narratives around that. So we'll start with champions, and then we'll go into just generally... general topics, fundamentals of ADC, what Charlie's observed coaching people in our ADC Academy that we've launched in the last month, what makes a good ADC, breaking down ADC at each rank, some good learning objectives for ADC, some narratives around that. Big one that we want to talk about is 5v5 ADC versus solo queue as well. That's a really good topic because a lot of AD carries have this idea of what the role is, and it differs a lot compared to maybe other roles.
Yep.
So that's sort of the structure that we'll do things. So yeah, let's start off here, Charles, talking about, I guess we'll talk about Misfortune because recently you've been on a tear in solo queue with Misfortune. So what sort of clicked with you with Misfortune, I guess?
Yeah, so I guess with MF, like we're making an MF guide at the moment, so I've been spamming Misfortune. I played a little bit of her in the past because Misfortune is like my number one pick for people who want to learn the role in the lower ranks. Like if you're below silver and you want to play AD carry, Misfortune is one of two champions that I recommend people play because very simple, like very few skill shots in the kit, wins lane, which is very important for AD carries to learn what it's like to actually have agency in a game. And the key to Misfortune is you're just fast. That's why MF is so good and why I've been having so much success on her. It's not because I'm outputting ridiculous damage. It's because she's literally the best champ in the game at playing for tempo, which is a weird concept, Curtis, Nathan, because when it used to be about tempo, you think of like a high rank concept, right? You think like, oh, you're playing for like high quality resets and having little micro timers over your opponent to get things done. But with AD carry, you can actually start introducing this concept very early because it's one of the few things you can actually do in the game to have an impact. Is getting tempo for dragons, getting tempo to get items, because you're such an item-reliant champion. You don't really get stronger with levels and points. You're more about your items.
What do you build?
So with Misfortune, I've got a very simple build. Bloodthirster into Infinity Edge. Just super, super simple. And then going like a Rapid Fire Cannon or Mortal Reminder or Lord Dominic's Regards. So just pure damage. Bloodthirster is actually a really big part of our reference points. Like once you get that item, you can just take crazy trades and then just heal back to full. I love swapping mid and versing a mage and just taking like a 50% HP trade against a mage and then just healing it up off one wave. And then you can just push the mage out of lane. That's a very common play pattern you see in mid game. But yeah, I've just had a lot of success on MF because it's all just been about tempo, all about high quality resets and wave management and not the ult. That's the important part is when people see Misfortune, they see this 5v5 team fighter who's going to win all these fights, right? In these choke points, at dragons, at barons, and enemies. It's like that beautiful imagination of like 5 enemies running into my ult and getting a pentakill. That's happened maybe once to me in my 30
think
games.
About practically how useless really MF ult is. Like, as a jungler's perspective, I play champs like Jarvan and Rek'Sai and stuff. I am not scared of that ability at all. Like, you think about you're standing still as an AD carry.
It's legit. It's just a shit Jhin.
Flawed.
Yeah, right. Jhin is like infinitely better if you actually think of it.
100%.
Because the range is so much higher. It has CC, it has slow, so you can use it as a setup. But MF,
and even the radius as well, isn't it way bigger as well? Jhin ults.
Jhin ulti is like 3 times the range.
Yeah.
And the radius. And the auto attack's slow.
Because when I think of MF, like just from a laner's perspective, like I don't really know what to think. It's kind of like a jack of all trades. It's not again from an idiotic mid laner's perspective.
Yeah.
I look at an MF and I'm thinking, well, do I view it as like a hyper carry and something that I need to be scared at 3 items like a Jinx or a Kai'Sa? Or do I view it more like, okay, they're just kind of going to be a bit of a lane bully and then fizzle out? Or is it like, what is it? So like I guess, the identity to me is kind of, I don't really understand. So like, how could you think at a high level, how should people think of the identity of MF? What is the identity of MF?
Sure. So in laning phase, the identity of MF is all around short trades. She's the queen of short trades. Beautiful 100 to 0 trades where you poke them off the Q bounce on minions or abusing your passive, right? She hard loses every extended trade in the game because her auto attacks don't do damage unless she's proccing her passive. So that's really, really crucial for people to understand is if you just really laser focus on short trades, then you can pretty much out short trade every champ in the game.
Wait, which ability does the movement speed come from? Is it the passive or
The W.
The W. And how does it work? It scales with
When
level?
when you're out of combat, you get movement speed.
Yeah.
And when you press the button, you get attack speed.
I see. And the movement speed, it scales.
Correct.
With your
Scales
level,
with points in the
because
in the
Miss Fortune
ability.
zips around the map.
So I'm kind of just thinking aloud that there are champions in mid whereby if you're just good at the trading aspect of the champion, it kind of like everything else comes naturally. Is MF that sort of champion where like if you just know how to trade and you just know how to take good trades, the rest of the kit kind of just like figures its way out? Or do you feel like there are certain fundamentals that are really, really important for MF?
Yeah, the fundamentals are just wave managements and resets. Like, it's not a champion that takes towers very easily in the laning phase because you're too short range. It's not a champion that can just, like, run at someone and kill them. You have to play very slow, so it's a lot of slow building waves to give you opportunities to take short trades. And then it's a lot of just, like, really boring League of Legends where you're just 10 CS per minute, the classic, shoving in wave, take a reset, get tempo on the map, do a dragon, get vision. Like, in laning phase, like, you're kind of just... It's very dependent on your support as well. If you've got an engaged support, then by all means, you can kill people 2v2. But if you don't, then you're very happy ending laning phase 0-0. And then the thing that defines MF in the mid game, Curtis, is the mid prior, right? What this champion has with the E and the threat of like walking up and auto queuing someone for a quarter of their HP, you can basically just get mid push in every matchup in the mid game, even if you're outranged, because your E is such a threatening ability. But you can't really use it much.
So this is the rain, the slow, right?
Yeah,
what makes it threatening? Do you think it's because the slow?
It's because if you get tagged by it, MF will just run at you and do a quick auto Q auto, and then if you've got Bloodthirster and maybe another BF sword, you're half health.
Okay.
So you can just get mid push.
Okay, so you're not killing people, you're chunking people, you're playing for chunks.
You never play for kills.
I see.
You can't kill someone. You physically cannot.
That's such an important mindset shift, by the way.
Yeah, you're a shove and move champ.
Yeah, if you're a shove and move, like if I think about, because I just generally don't see good MFs ever.
No.
You've seen like you've cracked the code. They don't play for chunks. They try and kill people. They overextend. You can tell that their mindset is they're looking for good Rs, but you don't even care about your R. Your R's just like opportunistic.
It's opportunistic, but you still have to have foresight. Like you can't play a team fight like a normal AD carry because you just won't kill the front line.
But it sounds like a mage.
It is a control mage.
Everything that you're describing in my mind is like you want short trades, you don't care too much about your R, you're kind of trying to chunk people, you're kind of play for tempo and control, resets. It's like it sounds like Orianna or something, or like Victor.
100%. Well, think about it. You don't build an attack speed item on this champion.
Yeah, right.
You just build raw AD. So you're like an AD caster.
Yeah, it's like an AD caster.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's a great way to put it.
And so in that case, then why do you're saying at the start you recommend MF for beginners and for people below self? Like, what are the main reasons that's the case?
Yeah, I guess the first one, which is kind of counterintuitive to everything I've just said, is in the lower ranks, the ulti is a good ability.
Right.
For starters.
Because they just run into
People
you.
run into it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, below silver, you can get away with it. I think just, like, the idea of playing to a reference point is something that I like my lower members to learn. And MF has very clear reference points. The idea of, like Nathan said, not killing someone is something that I want to get in people's heads early. The idea of like you're in a good lane state and then the best thing to do is base is incredibly hard for people to
because people want to kill them, right?
Very powerful to just like take those resets. And yeah, it's just simple and rewarding. Like MF in the lower ranks will get a lot of kills. You will land a lot of Q bounces in the lower ranks because people just don't play around it. And yeah, if you play to MF strengths, you can literally just like obliterate games because of pure laning leads. And I just want my low rank players to like get really good at laning before anything else. So that's why I recommend it.
Great.
All right. It's so funny, Charles. You like talking about ADC. I've already noted down so many questions, like extra questions. Yeah, I have so many questions about ADC. All right. That's a good start. Let's talk about Jinx now, Charles.
So Jinx for me, when I think about Jinx, Charles, it's kind of like the archetypal AD carry, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I just think of, you're going to scale, you're going to do a boatload of damage, you have limited mobility, you genuinely need peel. A lot of the time, you are rewarded for very good positioning. You get rewarded for min-maxing your positioning because of resets and things like that. It's like, if you have that like carry fantasy, I just think of like Jinx.
Yeah.
Would you say this is an accurate kind of assessment?
Yeah, Jinx. Yeah, you're right. Jinx is like the archetypal AD carry. I think that she's the other champion that I recommend to anyone starting with the role because it just teaches that hyper carry better than anyone else, right?
But by the way, how cool is that? Because like Jinx is in Arcane as well. That's pretty.
Oh, it's pretty good. We have a lot of Jinx players in the academy.
That's pretty
because
cool.
of Arcane.
Because think about it, it's not like they're recommending like some niche AD. Like it's not like the
Well, it's
star of
Jinx and
Arcane.
Caitlyn are the stars of Arcane,
And they're like,
they're pretty good AD carries.
Pretty good
They're
AD carries.
Yeah, exactly. They do the job.
And even in mid, right? You have what Victor?
Yeah, it's Victor. Exactly.
A pretty archetypal mage as well.
But Jace.
Jace. Okay, we do a Jace podcast in the future. I think we've all got opinions on Jace.
Yeah, Jace is
No one
requires
likes
a whole
Jace.
segment.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Let's start with Jinx in lane phase.
Yeah.
I generally, so my view of Jinx is it's not going to like take over lane or dominate lane or like it's literally just farming. It's just farming. Is that correct?
I mean, very high level, sure. But the way I teach Jinx is like, and this is from, I got this terminology from Deos, one of our coaches, is Jinx doesn't play to fight. Jinx plays for the wave, right? So Jinx is a champion who has some of the best wave clear in the game. She's one of the only champs level 1 that has this AoE ability that can just get priority. So she can pretty much hit level 2 first in every matchup, and she can pretty much nuke waves whenever she wants.
That's because of her rocket form.
Her rocket form.
Yeah.
So yeah, she kind of wants to be trade avoidant a lot of the time. You can go for little single autos here and there. That's a bit higher level. Like if I see a Jinx below platinum who's not really trading a whole lot, I probably wouldn't even bother bringing it up in a review. It's just not a problem unless the enemies are being stupidly out of position. You're very comfortable just farming 10 CS per minute. Playing around your flash cooldown is really important for Jinx, and then yeah, just playing for resets in fights, playing for item spikes. She's just a classic AD carry. Get farmed, play for item spikes, play well at neutral objective fights, and that should win you games.
Do you feel very vulnerable playing Jinx compared to other AD carries? No dash?
I think that's an interesting point that people bring up, but not many carries have dashes. I think it's the exception that AD carries do have dashes, not
That's
that they
true.
don't. When
Yeah.
people say like immobile carries are weak to dive, it's like, well, most carries are immobile. So
They have to. It has to be that design. Otherwise, they'll be broken by concept, right? Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
if I think about Jhin, Draven, I mean, for some reason, just Xayah and Small to come and Corki and stuff. So I'm like, those champs are just broken by concept.
yeah, well, yeah, it's not like, I mean, sure. I mean, there is like a level of comfort which comes by having an Ezreal E or whatever, but I don't think it really changes much about how you play.
So you don't feel like vulnerable and scared, like
No.
because you're controlling the wave all the time.
Yeah.
I see.
Interesting. So okay. So would you say Jinx is one of those champions that plays out many different ways because of it's kind of okay? Because again, the way you were describing MF is that MF is this rock.
Yeah.
How it's going to play in kind of the same way, rain, hail, or shine. Whereas Jinx, kind of what you're alluding to, your response to Nathan's question about at a high level, yes, you're playing conservative, but Jinx has the potential to potentially again maybe play the wave in a completely, maybe an aggressive way, or get prior, get shove, or get shoved in, and that's totally dependent on the matchup and the supports that you're paired with. Is that kind of the way? Because that's my again basic assessment of Jinx, is that it's completely dependent on the support. Jinx with a Pike, is a completely different champion than a Jinx with a Leona or a Nami or a Lulu, right? Any of these other supports. Whereas MF's MF. Yeah. MF is going to do MF things whether you're with a Lulu, a Karma, or a Pike.
Yeah.
Right?
That's fair.
Would you say, yeah?
Yeah, to some extent, yeah. I think like the champion MF has much clearer reference points in lane than Jinx. Simply put, I think Jinx's reference points in lane are largely based around playing for yourself, playing for item spikes. Like she doesn't necessarily prefer a type of wave state on her own, like you said. If you're playing Jinx Xerath, you want to push. If you're playing Jinx Leona, you want to get the wave on your side so you can look for engages. So yeah, she's kind of like a weapon. You kind of point Jinx in a direction and she'll do stuff, right?
Again, this terminology that you're using reminds me a lot of mid laners. There's a lot of mid laners like this, and people don't like this actually. I find champions like this actually kind of hard to teach.
Okay.
Because if they're piloted well, you can learn amazing fundamentals. And the skill cap of these champions is incredibly high. But at the same time, when you don't have super rigid kind of trading patterns, like Jinx's trading patterns aren't super rigid. You know what I mean?
Well, she doesn't really have trading patterns.
Exactly right. Like
Yeah.
you're kind of just like, okay, if I can weave in a rocket order, I can, or someone's gone in, I can follow up with my E and my,
Yeah.
and, you know, whatever. It's like you don't have some like, it's not like MF. It's like, okay, I'm looking for those Q bounces and looking for those singular orders and then backing off.
Yep.
So people don't, when you're teaching champions that don't have these kind of rigid trading patterns and rigid micro reference points, people get a little bit antsy and they get drawn to things because they don't have anything to orient themselves around.
They want a nice little sentence.
Yeah, they want a neat, exactly. They want a neat little thing that they can package up and be like, I'm going to do this.
That's where the play for the wave comes from. With
Right.
Jinx.
So that's what I was going to ask. Like, what are the reference points? So you got a Jinx player in silver. What are we thinking here? How are you going to approach that?
Yeah, so play for the wave, be trade avoidance. I actually use that terminology. Like, literally prioritize staying high HP for the majority of a laning phase so you can choose when you reset. You want to like recall on good timers in general. Like, these very general things for laning phase, right? But Jinx is quite a generalist, so I think you have to like focus more on fundamentals than you do on champ mastery, I guess, more than other champions. I'm trying to recall what the Jinx reference points are right now. It's been a while since I made the guide, but yeah, I mean those two would probably just be my main ones for laning phase. I think Jinx's reference points are relatively simple. A large part of the skill gap with Jinx that I see is like ability usage. Weirdly enough, like.
So what do you mean by that? Talk me through the minigun versus the rocket. Are you ever using, like, when do you use minigun? What is that?
That's not something I really care about.
You don't really care
honestly,
about.
no.
So that's not
I'm very
usage.
happy for a Jinx player to be in the rocket gun form the whole game.
Is that right?
100%.
Really?
Yeah, I don't care. Like, there's gonna.
So when you switch to the minigun, you get attack speed,
Correct,
right? But
yes.
rocket isn't attack speed.
No.
It's just AOE and range. I
Correct.
see.
So yeah, in like below diamond, yeah, just be in the rocket gun form the whole time. I think it's safer. You actually more of the time do more damage than in the minigun form, unless
of
you're
the
like
range.
close quarters 1v1,
I
which
see.
doesn't really happen a whole lot.
I see.
But yeah, I guess Curtis, it's just about you're just a quintessential scaling champion. So your goals are very boring. Your goals are stay high HP, recall on item spikes, make sure you're like managing the wave in a way that gets you access to farm in accordance to your support's identity more than your own identity.
Yeah, that's it reminds me so much like champions like Vigar in a way, where it's like you have these like loose. I mean, look, even Vigar has probably more well-defined trading patterns, but in the sense that it's like you're kind of limited in as to what you can do proactively. So the terminology that I tend to use with these champs is opportunistic.
Yes.
And so even Ari is kind of like this in the lane phase. I say this matchup again. I'll say it's a game of dodgeball. You know, if they get in your range, great, take a trade. If they don't, then it is what it is. You're okay kind of scaling and getting to your level 6, or, you know, etc. So I say opportunistic trading. And again, some people resonate with this. Some people are okay with that. Other people, you know, maybe struggle with that. But that's just the nature of the champion. You're kind of limited. So yeah, I think that all makes sense. So would you say that with Jinx, it's kind of like if you're looking at let's say a master tier Jinx and you're looking maybe at like a platinum Jinx, it's less about how they're piloting Jinx itself. It's more like the underlying AD carry kind of fundamentals. That is the difference, would you say?
Yeah, and just how you play the mid game as well. I think a lot of Jinx's strengths come out of the mid game more than the laning phase. Even up until the highest ranks, Jinx in lane is going to be most of the time just playing to survive. Yeah, you're not a champ that can take over laning phase. Like there are some games where I can like weave in so many rocket autos that I can end up damaging the tower, pushing them out of lane and stuff. But I wouldn't really teach the champion that way. Yeah. It's purely mid game, knowing your limits, playing like a freak in team fights, and just dealing a lot of damage, getting aggressive on mid waves, using your enchanter support, stuff like this. Yeah.
So it's all about the AD carry, quintessential AD carry fundamentals.
Yeah. The way you say what's the terminology you use? Opportunistic. Yeah, I would say proactively reactive is how I say it. Opportunistic is probably a lot cleaner way to say it, but yeah, a lot of AD carries actually are opportunistic in the way they play out their lanes, because we have so many scaling champions down there. A lot of them don't have many options on their own.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, let's move on to Kai'Sa now. I think Kai'Sa is the best solo queue champ in the game.
Yeah, I think Kai'Sa is one of the best champs.
Whenever I think about pentakills in my solo queue games, whenever I think about a game that's like out of my control, like an AD carry that like I'm scared of, like Jinx, like as a jungler who plays, I like to play engaged champs. Jinx MF, yeah, I mean Jinx can get out of control and be a bit annoying, especially with certain supports, right? MF doesn't scare me because no one knows how to play MF, but maybe Charles will inspire everyone. But Kai'Sa is the one where I'm like, okay, this champ is scary. The ult's annoying. the stealth thing's annoying. Tell me about Kai'Sa here, Charles. Do you agree with that statement, or is that ridiculous?
Well,
And do people struggle?
You've played with my Kai'Sa a bit.
Yeah.
I've got a 49% win rate on Kai'Sa, so I clearly don't know how to win games. No, I'm kidding. But dude, okay, so I've got maybe a hot take about Kai'Sa is that I don't think Kai'Sa's very good. I think that everyone just has a crazy amount of mastery on it. Because she's the most fun, she's the most popular. So in your games, especially pro players, they've played 1,000 Kai'Sa games. They've played 10 MF games. So obviously the Kai'Sa is going to be better than the MF.
Right, so you're saying there's like the sample size is biased.
The sample size is biased because everyone's so damn good at Kai'Sa. She is the AD carry in the higher ranks.
Oh, it's interesting. That reminds me of that freak video that he did where it was he kind of graphically showed how certain champions have a disproportionate amount of high mastery players.
Yeah.
So Katarina was one of them. So you don't really see many people with like average mastery or low mastery. Most of the people who play Katarina are going to the deep end and like sending it. Maybe it'd be interesting to see what the actual stats are on Kai'Sa's mastery in the player base. Is that a champion that has an average high mastery? So if anyone can find that data, let us know. I'd actually be really intrigued to see.
Get Expedo back for that one.
Yeah, an Expedo back for that. But okay, I want to say something about Kai'Sa because okay, well, first things first, Kai'Sa, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't have has a pretty weak lane.
It depends on the support matchups.
Okay.
If you're playing like an engager versus engager bot lane, like a Kai'Sa versus alley, I want a Kai'Sa. My Kai'Sa's gonna have the one of the best follow-ups in the game when it comes to playing those engage v engage bot lanes. But if you're playing against any kind of range or with any kind of range, then yeah, Kai'Sa in lane is pretty bad.
And so for me, I'm more leaning towards Nathan. I think Kai'Sa is one of the scariest AD carries to deal with in solo queue.
Yep.
Not because it's hard to kill. It's more about when it's on my team, how well it can adapt to chaos.
Yes.
And it can follow
sort of
up.
Self-pill and follow-up, you're saying.
Exactly.
But you value the follow-up more.
I value the follow-up more. The amount of times where, like, you know, I see a pick, I see an angle, and whether it's like I get a Syndra stun, or I get a you know, some root on whatever, I'm playing Lissandra or whatever, Gali, I'm going in, and I know I've got a Kai'Sa there.
Yeah.
That completely changes the range of possibilities with the way I can play fights. It's almost, I view it like it's this perfect mold of like this, just like this AD carry that can do everything. And I don't have to worry about it. It's got anti-dive, it's got peel, and it's got follow-up, and it's got scaling. And if it can win lane, well, great.
The hybrid AP AD thing's really OP as well, adaptable to comps.
Yeah, that as well. But AD Kai'Sa is so much worse, right?
It is, yeah.
Does everyone just go the hybrid now?
Everyone goes AP Kai'Sa.
Yeah.
Even with AD Kai'Sa,
right?
you go Ginzu, yeah. Yeah.
But you're still doing AD damage though, right? A little bit.
You can skew your build, right? To more AD, but it's just nowhere near
No,
as
you
strong.
always want AP.
Oh.
You technically can, yes, guys, you're right. You can build Terminus or Bloodthirster or more AD items, but no one does. It's just not mathematically optimal, I don't think, and it just feels like shit to do it. Honestly.
I see.
So, but what do you think? What do you think about what I said though about that Kai'Sa's adaptability? Would you say
That's
that's
true. Kai'Sa's a really good win more champ. I think that she is pretty good at adapting to the chaos of solo queue. Again, I think it's largely because people are really good at it, but I think that she strikes me as a champion that can kind of fend for herself more than other AD carries can, which is like a strength not many AD carries have. Like Kai'Sa can 1v1 a lot of mid laners, a lot of top laners, a lot of junglers even. Like if you're playing Rek'Sai, you can't just like tunnel onto a Kai'Sa without them having a threat of outplay. Tunnel onto an MF dies.
Yep.
But
Jarvan
why is
kill
the
as
AD
well.
carry getting tunneled on in the first place? That's if you think about Kai'Sa, like practically speaking in solo queue, then yeah, if you put a very skilled player behind it, then yeah, it's strong. It can do a lot. But the Kai'Sas that I see in coaching sessions compared to the Kai'Sas you guys are probably playing with or playing against in solo queue are night and day.
So what are some of the key mistakes? What do you see? What's the average Kai'Sa saying gold or silver? What are you saying?
It's simply the ability to output damage is just not there. Like the Q is a very difficult ability to use because it needs to be isolated to actually do damage. The W is a skill shot, so it's hard to land. The ulti actually has a lot of skill expression behind it.
Yeah.
And the E is counterintuitive because it puts you out of you can't shoot while you're firing it. So the kit is difficult. Kai'Sa is a hard champ, right? That's why I don't really recommend it.
It scales with game understanding.
Yeah,
Also, you would attack. I mean, if you don't auto attack, you don't have abilities that really do damage. I mean, obviously W, right? But you have to.
No, most of Kai'Sa's damage comes from her auto and Q.
Isn't it
W and
Q?
Q.
Oh, okay.
Croc in the passive, right? Is where all the damage comes from.
Okay.
Well, that's a part of it, the plasma, yeah.
Yeah,
but
the passive scares me. Yeah, that's why I think about
a lot of emotions going on with Kai'Sa. It's like what's scary and what's happy, you know, with Kai'Sa. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if you don't auto attack, you're not going to be doing much damage. But there's good Kai'Sa games and there's bad Kai'Sa games. And maybe I'm just biased because I have recency bias playing Kai'Sa with range supports. If you get a range support and you're playing Kai'Sa, then it sucks. But if you're picking Kai'Sa in good Kai'Sa games, then Kai'Sa's exceptional. I should have been more specific about this. Kai'Sa's one of the champions that really needs stuff on her team. Jinx
in multi-threat,
any game. Put Jinx in any game, she's going to function. Even MF, put MF in any game, they're going to function. Kai'Sa is a champ that's hard to one trick because you can't pick it with every game. Even support pairings, like you just can't. Kai'Sa Janna, get that off my game. Like it's so much harder to play the game. Like you can do it. I don't recommend people do it, but you're kind of just playing to scale. And then in team fights, like Kai'Sa just doesn't do what most AD carries do. She doesn't play front to back team fights.
It's exactly what you're describing. Is as like a classic niche counter pick but an incredibly strong one. It's like I liken this to say a champ like I'm just gonna use a random example, but let's say Vex.
Okay.
Vex in the right game can feel like the best champion in the game. It can be like this is incredibly
the melee, the anti-engage, the anti-thing,
and the follow-up dive. In the right game, Vex can be amazing. Or even like a Lissandra or an Ari or these champions. Yeah. They have really bad games. Like play Galio in a bad Galio game, you're gonna feel like the worst champ in the game. You play Galio in a great comp where you got a Camille top, you got like a Jarvan jungle, you got like a Kai'Sa that can follow up on your engage, you got all these things, and you're first thing like you got an easy lane. It's like, why would I ever not play the champion? But then again, you load into the next game, you got the opposite of that. You're a piece of shit. So, but what you said is really. I think is really a great observation in the sense that yes, you have these amazing games for Kai'Sa and shit games for Kai'Sa, but because she requires so much mastery, you can't really afford to play Kai'Sa in only the good Kai'Sa games because you're probably not going to have enough mastery to make her work. So this is my problem with champs like Cassio, right? Where it's like the champ is arguably amazing in the right Cassio games, but no one is putting in enough Cassio games because there's not many of those angles.
Yeah.
So would you say Kai'Sa, so how would you recommend the average person to even, so is Kai'Sa like labor of love where it's like you just got to suck it up in some of those shit games? Or how would you, who should play Kai'Sa and who shouldn't play Kai'Sa?
I think Kai'Sa is just a good champ to have in your pool, but you can't one trick it. I think that's just a simple way to put it. I think that you have Kai'Sa in your pocket to pick when you're, Kai'Sa can function in hard Kai'Sa games as long as you have a support next to you that at least works kind of with you. You know, it can be a Braum or a Taric. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like,
you just need
obviously,
some
I'd love a Leona Nautilus. Give me one of those next to me as Kai'Sa. But you need at least a support that wants to do the same things you want to do, or else you're going to have a bad time. As for what you're up against, I care less about that. It's more about what your team does. Whereas I feel like with a champ like Vex, it's more about what the enemy team wants, right? Or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, it's a bit about. I think there are champs like I love this conversation. Just a bit of a tangent here.
Yeah,
there are champs like Cassio that care a lot about what the enemy champions are and less so what you're paired with. Whereas there are other champs like I would say Vex. I actually, of those, don't care what I'm versing.
Okay.
Even if I'm versing tanks, I don't give a shit as long as I have multi-threat because I can kill that 180 carry. So in a way, like I think it depends.
I would say Xayah is similar for AD carry. Like with Xayah, I care more about what I verse.
Exactly.
I don't want to verse high range as Xayah.
Exactly right. So yeah, I think that's a really great observation. So you need a lot of mastery.
Yeah.
You need to be careful when you pick it, specifically with what supports, has a high skill cap, and it needs to auto attack according to Nathan.
Yes, correct. Also, people love Kai'Sa, so I don't want to like dissuade people from playing it. Yeah. If you want to go and pick Kai'Sa every game, go and do it. Just set your expectations. The Kaisers that you see on YouTube in high rank in worlds and stuff, like look at what support they're playing with, guys.
Yeah,
they're always
they have. It's easy to have good highlight montages. Like,
oh yeah,
there's no highlight montages of MF unless it's like a 5-main ult.
Yeah,
but Kai'Sa, you can have 3 montage plays per game,
100%,
right?
Yes.
And a lot of other champs as well. Like going through the list, like a lot of them are just boring fundamentals.
Like Ashe.
Yeah, like Ashe. Like,
I love Ashe.
So, like Caitlyn, like no one shows like a Caitlyn lane phase, like
a montage of whittling the tower down.
Yeah, slowly getting every plate. Like there's
yeah, that's good.
Well, okay. So is there anything else for Kai'Sa? Or we've covered Kai'Sa?
I think we're going to Kai'Sa.
I'll just say one last thing on Kai'Sa. I'm still developing my understanding of the champion. I'm nowhere near an expert on Kai'Sa, and I could have just spouted some bullshit. To be honest with you, that's just been my experience.
Get those reps in.
Yeah, I think like Kai'Sa in high elo compared to Kai'Sa in every other elo is just it's one of the starkest
I can
differences
see
between
that.
champions.
Yeah.
I will say just quickly, as you, because that's actually something I've struggled to wrap my head around, this whole idea that you have this clear idea of what you perceive this champion to be in the games that you're playing it in. Like, what it's like to play this champion in this elo bracket, like Diamond, Master Plus. But you don't have a crystal clear understanding of what does this champ mean in silver or like in bronze or in gold. So it takes a while to kind of calibrate and like, okay, what is important? What is important for a Kalista in silver?
Yeah.
Maybe it's actually not using R aggressively at all. Maybe it's all about defensive and holding your R for peel. Who knows? I'm probably definitely spouting bullshit here. So yeah, I think that's completely normal.
Yeah.
Don't stress too much about that. So I want to move on to, we're going to go Xayah here, I guess. Okay, we'll get to Xayah, but I'm really excited to get Ezreal.
I was going to literally skip Xayah.
Yeah, I want to go
So
straight to
Ezreal's
Ezreal,
I would say Ezreal's my best AD carry. I don't know if
Okay.
you saw the account earlier, but Ezreal's one of my most played, highest win rate. I love it. I've played this champion since like 2013.
I've got...
Okay, guys, let's have some fun with narratives here already.
we got narratives
About-
now.
people-
Can I just say before we start this, I remember living with you guys and I was playing Ezreal and I heard bullshit from my desk when that was happening. You guys-
Wait, first thing I want to say about Ezreal to set the scene here. I think Ezreal is the champ that people think they can play the most but can't.
Yep, I agree.
That's my number one thing I was saying. Even myself.
off-roll Ezreal's is so funny.
Off-roll Ezreal is
the
it's like the
worst.
biggest gaslight in the world.
That's awesome.
Everyone thinks, oh, I play a mage. I should be able to land some skill shots here.
Yeah.
And you play Ezreal and you're like just fucking useless.
Yeah.
So that's my I don't know if that's a narrative. That's just what I believe.
Yeah.
How accurate is that, Charles?
Okay, can I just go
Nathan,
for another one?
go, Nathan.
Ezreal, I hate Ezreals that don't auto attack.
Yeah.
I'm sick of Ezreals that go for Q. Like they
Yeah.
literally think that their champion is just Q.
Yeah.
What else do I don't like about Ezreal?
Yeah, you know-
Ezreals that think that they're safe because they have E and they're
Yep.
just so easy to
But
kill.
you know what
Correct.
the most important? Let's do a vote here. What's the most? And you have to say it in your mind before I ask this question. You can't be biased by other people's answers. What's the most important ability on Ezreal? Okay, ready? Wait. So we'll go one by one. We'll do Nathan first.
Wait, can I just think about this just a little bit? You guys have to do.
Yeah.
Mine's going to be different to yours, I imagine.
I'm gonna say W.
Okay, mine's the passive.
Okay. What's yours?
I've just been biased.
You're going to copy me and say passive now.
What does the passive do?
Attack speed.
Attack
It gives
speed.
you a bloody
Oh, yeah,
50%
attack speed.
Yeah,
attack
that's why when
speed.
you are, it gives you all
Yeah.
that attack
Yes.
speed. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
the passive, I
in
agree.
lane, okay, so we'll just get into it, right?
Right,
So
right.
Ezreal is defined by its passive.
Yep.
Your ability
You
to
have to
land
land
skill
your
shots
damage.
on enemy champions is not as impactful until later in the game. And later in the game, it's actually quite easy to land Ezreal Qs. It's in the laning phase where people grief because they try and land Qs on the enemy champs when the best Ezreal players just
Play
Q
for
the
the wave.
wave for their passive stacks and then E forwards with 50% attack speed and
Yes.
obliterate you.
And they
That
W
makes
and
sense.
E forwards.
Correct. The WE combo is huge.
The WE combo, that's why I said W, because when
Yeah.
I play bot, or like secondary, the best Ezreals, exactly what you do. They auto Q the wave, get shove, and then they're using that W and Eing.
Yep.
And the Ezreals that land W versus don't land W, it's like a different champion
Yep.
because the E won't do anything. And that's where you get the chunks and that's where you can get the ball rolling.
Correct.
So, yeah, I agree. It's like probably
W
passive.
does more damage than Q. People don't realize that.
Yeah, people don't realize that. That's where a lot of the lane damage, that's
Yeah.
where your lane control comes from. If you can land those W's, WEs, it's like you're just a different champion. You're in a whole different league. But you're spot on. I love that you identify that. Because I mean, I've been that Ezreal for such a long time. I think I'm faker trying to do trigonometry and land all these Qs. And I'm like,
You see like those clips of, I don't know, what AD carry was it who like land every Q in lane? Like they actually hit their champions. There's like clips of that. I can't
there
remember
is
who it was in
there's an
season
Ezreal
before.
OTP. There's
There
like a
is.
China-
It's
isn't
rank 1 Chinese OPP. It's like
Yeah.
2200 LP on the super server.
Yeah, I've seen that guy.
I'm not going to butcher his name. I'm not going to do him the disservice of that. But he's the best Ezreal in the world. He just lands every single
Yeah, he lands
ability.
all his
He's crazy.
abilities.
But I figured out this passive thing. Like I played Ezreal for years without knowing it. I was in the Q camp, and I just got quite good at Qs. I'm just like
Like
relatively
Q in champions or
yeah,
wave?
skill
Oh,
shots.
Okay,
Oh,
skill
sorry,
shots.
champions. I'm just relatively good at skill shots, so I was
Yeah.
winning lanes by hitting people, right?
Mm.
But then I figured out the passive thing. I'm like, holy shit, this just changes everything. The champion's OP. It's literally completely different. And ever since I started playing for like level up timers and eing forward and just like auto, it's like the classic thing, Nathan, holding Q. You run at them and you auto,
trying
and
to
they're
dodge.
juking themselves to
Yeah.
death. Yeah, it's beautiful. And it was Gala that
Gala.
I was watching VODs of Gala. And yeah, he was just using his Q on the wave and eing forward and stuff. And yeah, very good. You don't want to E backwards. Like viewing E as a secondary flash is just the shittest way to
It's
view
an
the ability.
offensive tool. It's not a
Yep.
defensive tool.
Correct.
If you're ever having to use your E defensively in Ezreal, you fucked up.
Yeah,
You've really
agreed.
fucked up. Okay, that's all that out of the way.
I'm happy that's out of the way.
That was a bit of a flash in the pan there.
Yeah.
Xayah.
I mean, like, let's just move on. I'm not going to talk about Ezreal anymore. All right, Xayah. Let's talk about Xayah here. So yeah, exactly what you said before, Charles.
Yeah.
If I see Xayah in my mind, when I have it on my team or the enemy team, I just look at the team comp. Is it heavy range?
Yeah.
Champion's the worst, literally the worst champ in the game.
Correct.
If I ever get heavy melee champs, and I have thought a lot. I've gone through phases where I've banned Xayah when it's been popular because I play Rek'Sai and Jarvan and stuff
It'd
like
be so
that.
bad for your chance.
And I look, let's say if I have like just a melee mid, a melee top, melee support, and then Xayah, like I'm like, this is the hardest game of my life, you know? So is that true?
Well, the ult is scary, as you would put it, but I don't think it's as scary as you're probably thinking. Like, she's not invincible because of her ulti. But yeah, Xayah...
No, but it's not about that. It's about the nature of way solo queue works. Like, because people like...
They overcommit.
Yes. So you just lose fast, like against Xayah. Like the game just gets out of control, and then if it gets to the point where I'm against Xayah, who they're so far ahead they don't even need to press their R. Like it takes so much resources just to even get them to think about their R. It's just,
I think it's just following on from the conversation with Kalista. A good Xayah game is a great Xayah game, and you can just win the game.
Yeah.
Whereas like shit Xayah games, it can be one of the worst champs of the game.
It's more stark than Kalista, though.
It's even more. Yeah.
I think it's more. Yeah, Kalista, I think is way
It's just
more
a niche counter. It's a counter pick champ, right? That's really
it's like
really
Samira. Samira is a similar one, I would say. But Xayah is huge. Xayah is like the best counter pick AD carry, even especially at the moment. Like she's just crazy in some games.
So tell me, what are the picks? What are the counter picks?
Kind of, what does Xayah counter?
Yeah.
Well, Kai'Sa for starters.
Yeah.
Like any short, if you can get away with Kai'Sa with Xayah in lane, then if the enemy has triple melee topside, just pick it.
Okay.
Yone, shits on Yone, shits on most junglers. Just probably every jungler, honestly, except for like the range ones.
Like Bran and stuff
Most
like that.
top laners as well, like any bruiser. So yeah, I mean, the key sign for me, what makes a good Xayah game is, what is the enemy support playing? Are they playing an engager? And what is the enemy mid playing? Is the enemy mid not playing a mage? If that's the case, then Xayah's great. But Xayah is an interesting champ because her skill set, her skill ceiling is huge. Insanely hard champion. Harder than Kai'Sa. It's all about threat, this champ.
The feather positioning.
Correct. It's all about like Katarina daggers, actually. You know, in a team
Similar
fight,
premise.
when you put a Katarina dagger down and that creates a threat zone, similar thing with the feathers. You put the feathers behind as an area and the enemies cannot walk there, or else you rip them back and they
I think
die.
I was watching one of the AD carry coaching sessions with Deos or one of
We're
them.
doing Rico. Rico's very passionate about the Xayah.
Yeah, and I heard him like
Yeah.
going deep on all these like feather locations.
Really?
I'm like, yeah, I was like, holy
he's
shit.
a beast. Rico, he's a big Xayah player.
Like he knows like exactly, and also he was saying how like the cooldowns are pretty high as well, so you got to be pretty on point about when you're using your abilities and like knowing why you're placing feathers, like where you're placing them, and like it gets really technical. So I couldn't agree more. I wouldn't have agreed with that statement like before I watched that coaching session from Rico, and I'm like, holy shit, yeah, the skill cap of this champ's pretty insane.
Yeah, it's another champion where like I was winning games on Xayah by just viewing her like a hyper carry with a get out of jail free card. But once you start looking at the next level and getting into feathers, the champ's crazy high skill cap.
I love that aspect of champions, by the way. How it's almost as if that they have. It's not that they don't have this super high barrier to entry, but they have a super high skill cap. So like they're easy to get the basics. So it's easy to get from like 0 to like 70. But then getting from 70 to like 90 is like really, really, really hard. You know, like anyone can get to that 70 level. You know what I mean? I love champs like that. So because everyone gets complacent, very few people take it to that next level, like the 70 plus, because it's so easy just to play Xayah in just the good Xayah games and just win and just do enough to get that win.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So yeah, I love that.
All right, let's move on. Oh, sorry, I want a question about Xayah. Rakan.
Yeah.
What's the relationship between like?
I think they're husband and wife, right? What do you mean?
What's does it have to be paired? Like what's like?
I'm curious.
How game changing is it with Rakan?
It's not that game changing.
It's really not that matter that much.
No, it's okay. The biggest part of it, in my opinion, is that Rakan can dash further and you get the attack speed passive. The synchronized recall is whatever. No one does it. You know. So what happens is when Xayah presses W in her own kit, she gets attack speed. If Rakan's in the game, Rakan also gets attack speed.
And then that doesn't really do anything.
Who gives a fuck?
Rakan does no damage.
There's this one interaction where level 1, you can start in the bush as Xayah Rakan, both level W and just all in level 1. I have done that quite a bit in the past, but it's 2024 and people kind of know that now. So it just doesn't happen anymore.
I rember Xayah Rakan back in the day, like 2017.
It was how broken it was.
It was so broken.
Yeah, it was.
I remember it's terrifying. They have Xayah Rakan G.
Yeah, well, they've nerfed the shit out of it.
Instantly at a disadvantage in draft.
100%.
Rakan.
Yeah.
You
I
have
remember
to
that.
ban one because then they
Yeah.
wouldn't pick it, right?
Yeah, because on red side you would 1-2 Xayah Khan and then the draft would be done. Like
Yeah.
you just can't play. But
It made
nowadays
every draft
it's
look
easy
good
to
as
beat.
well.
Yeah.
Because think about it, is Rakan's engage and
Yeah.
Xayah's the disengage. So you
Yeah.
have like the perfect combination of both. That's like
Yeah, that was the mindset,
That was the
yeah.
mindset back then.
Pretty stupid, eh?
So stupid. And no one could not get solo killed by Xayah
Yeah.
back in the day, I feel like. Every game the enemy had Xayah Khan, they were dying bot.
Yeah, because it's just too much damage and it's too hard to dodge the engage.
So
'Cause
ridiculous.
there
It
used to
feels
be
like they have 20,000 abilities.
there used to be no delay on the Rakan RW. So what you could do is you could Rakan RW insta and just CC someone.
So it was kind of like ZW.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah,
correct. Exactly
yeah,
right.
right.
No, the R shit where you could go back to the shadow, right?
Yeah. No, but you remember when ZW got it got changed?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
slower.
Yeah, it got way slower,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But yeah, it's interesting about the Xayah Rakan because if you think about it, Xayah counters Rakan. So why weren't people just trading it in that direction back in the day?
Yeah. It don't
Why
make no
weren't like
sense.
just let him pick Rakan and pick Xayah? Like that
Yeah.
sounds pretty good to me, you know?
Yeah, just take the trade.
Yeah.
Or just play, just no. I feel like back then no one was playing those disengaged supports properly, like
Yeah, that's
Poppy
true.
and stuff like that. Like
Or
I feel like,
Braum obliterates Xayah as
but
well.
no one was competent enough on those disengaged supports to
Yeah.
to deal with it. I feel
Dude,
like.
if you pick Xayah Rakan and they pick Varus Braum, get me out of that game. You just that's an unplayable game. I mean, Rakan's actually okay into Braum in isolation, so maybe a bad example, but you know, Varus is fucking pain for Xayah to deal with.
All right, next one here. Another champion that I sort of put in the same bucket as Ezreal that probably has ruined me more games than won games is Ashe.
Okay.
Ashe. Let's talk about Ashe, Charles.
Yeah.
Ashe, get your thoughts, Curtis. But yeah, like jack of all trades, master of absolutely none.
well,
Can get in situations like the only times I ever think Ashe is like where you have to say like the montage is like obviously when it has like a lot of attack speed at some certain point in the game, and then you're just like doing it like a ton of damage, but it's like short range, so you're just probably gonna die anyway.
She's one of the highest range AD carries in the game.
In terms of auto attack,
Auto attack range, yeah.
is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't feel that way, but yeah, go on. All right, let's.
okay. Well,
yours.
first, where I want to start with, we get your narratives out of the way, Nathan. Now we can talk about the champion.
I love you
again.
just vomit the narrative. Get him
and
out.
Ashe just dies, dude.
Okay, no.
She
So
dies.
I think what you're
If she dies, she will continue to die.
So Ashe is not a traditional carry in that sense, right? You're not like think about your abilities. Your
Yeah.
E offers you no damage, right? And no mobility.
Yeah.
If you think about a lot of other carries, they have some sort of initial kind of self-peel mechanism, like you have like Jinx E, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So you got that. Your W throughout, as you get into the rest of the game, doesn't really do much damage, and then your R is like basically CC. Your only like raw damage is coming from your autos and your Q.
Yeah.
Right, and lethal tempo.
Sure.
So the reality is that Ashe is not a traditional like archetypal AD carry in that sense. It's the opposite of it's a utility based AD carry, right?
Mhm.
That's exactly what Ashe is, a utility based AD carry.
Mhm.
So what happens is that I think where I'm assuming where your nightmares are coming from in solo queue is that Ashe gets the kills. She's the only carry. And then you get into the mid game and she can't transition those leads into an action.
I'm not scared about a fed Ashe.
You're not
She'll
really
die.
scared about
Yeah.
a fed Ashe, but an Ashe that is like remotely even in a game where other people are ahead. It's one of the best AD carries to have on your team. It's like a win. You can like guarantee wins because your E, good usage of your E, and your R, like one of the best abilities in the game. I mean, I reckon Ashe's R is literally probably
It's
one
up
of,
there.
It's up there, probably at least top 20 abilities in the entire game, right?
I mean,
Surely.
the idea of Ashe as utility champ, in theory, sounds actually even broken by concept in a way.
Yeah.
But in practice, in solo queue, it's just
Yeah, so so I've got that out of the way about the utility, but so the question then is how effective do you believe Ashe to be in solo queues? Solo queue specifically.
Quite effective, I think. I think that again, I think about laning phase a lot when I think about AD carry, and Ashe has a very strong laning phase. I think that she has high range. She has one of the strongest level 1s in the game due to the fact that she can take extended fights. Something that people don't know is when you apply a slow to someone on Ashe, every subsequent auto attack onto that champion does bonus damage. So extended trades are fantastic for Ashe. She does a lot of damage. The thing about Ashe out of lane is she actually has a kit full of damage. She's got an attack speed steroid on her Q, like we already said.
Yep.
That alone is great. Perfect. That has basically 100% uptime. She just can't deal the damage. She's like a glass cannon. She's a true glass cannon AD carry even more so than Jinx because she doesn't have the traps or
No
the
self-build,
speed
basically.
or anything. She has no movement speed. Think about it. It's crazy. So the way I win games on Ashe is probably just mostly R usage, honestly. The best Ashe games I have is like you either snowball your lane so hard that if anyone comes near you, you just have more than enough damage to kill them. Or you're just playing a standard Ashe game and you're just winning through ults. So is that the best way to win solo queue from the AD position? Probably not. But is the champion very good in lane? And if you're a really good laner, are you going to have a lot of success? Yeah, you are, because you just got to come out of lane ahead. And that's the best thing you can do. So I think it's really simple. She's just a lane bully.
Yep. And but I also think there's another element here which is important to touch on is that the amount of CC that your composition has matters a lot. Like I think again, you know, I think of CC a lot in my composition because I'm a mid laner. You always think about that, but if I'm playing a champ mid that has CC and then I got like an Ashley on a bot, I'm like, for fuck's sake, you know, that champ instantly, in my eyes, gets reduced in effectiveness massively because obviously utility and the setup with your CC is such a massive part of your champ's identity. So I do think Ashe can grief a comp situationally. And I think that even if you do, this is where again, where yes, you have your strong lane, and I'm sure if you're a great laner, you can overcome that. I just do think it's worth noting.
Yeah, I will say the last thing on Ashe is like she's not a good weak side champion. So it's weird because she functions well with carry top laners because she brings the CC that they want to lack. But also you kind of want to play towards Ashe in lane because her wave clear is not the hottest.
It's a bit contradictory,
and you're kind of vulnerable. So yeah, it is a bit contradictory. Yeah, I mean, the way I view Ashe is like she's got a very simple reference points. So I like her. I think she's very simple to play, very difficult to execute. So yeah, pretty solid.
All right, Caitlyn, another lane bully champion.
Yeah,
Caitlyn, I think in overall, I'd say the community has everyone has the same grasp, the idea of it. You win lane, win game. Lose lane, lose game.
Well, but it scales incredibly well.
Emphasis on the lose, yeah.
But I view Caitlyn, and it's going to sound completely ridiculous, but I view it so similar to like a Pantheon, where
I can see this. I'm with this.
Because
Charles is laughing already.
Because Pantheon is one of those champions where like people think, oh, it's all lane, and you got to like
Panth can scale.
Pan scales amazingly.
Yeah.
This is the people don't understand. Panth at like 5 items is like it's like one of the best champs in the game. 5, 6 items. People don't understand that. It scales like crazy.
Isn't it team comp dependent though?
No, Pantheon is like just a scaler. So like again, it's like yes, if you get ahead early and you get the ball rolling, you're going to be fine, scale into mid game, whatever. But Pantheon is one of those champions where like.
But the mid game's terrible.
Mid game, it's not that good.
Game,
and then you get really, really strong on like your 4th item or something. So like I view Caitlyn like that, where it's like, if you can win the game by snowballing and then you're ahead of the curve and then you're chilling. But also at the same time, I've had games where Caitlyn does get behind, but then the game stalls out. She gets to 3 items. She becomes a problem. Caitlyn, in my experience, scales really, really, really well.
She does. It's the power trough, right? It's a classic power trough. Yeah. So it's like almost like an Urgot power curve, right? Very strong for the first. I mean, it's strong until it's a little bit
more, right?
Yeah, it's more like items than levels with Caitlyn. Like, so you're strong if you're on par with your opponent or slightly ahead of your opponent. You're great. The second you fall behind, you're in a hole until I-edge, basically. And then whenever you finish I-edge, you're back in the game. Because a crit AD carry on 3+ items is always going to do a lot of damage, right? And Caitlyn doesn't have issues dealing damage because she has a really good kit.
The kit's awesome.
Self-peel, traps are broken. She's really good when enemies are coming into her.
Yeah,
right?
so that's... So Caitlyn sucks for when a lot of my junglers get really frustrated with Caitlyn because junglers and just people in general don't know how to play with a Caitlyn, especially the objective setup. Like she can't like chase and follow up and does no like compared to this is where Kai'Sa's
like
easy
idiot
for people
proof
to play, to play with.
That's what I'm saying for junglers.
But people like have no like. I actually enjoy playing it with Caitlyn a lot, right?
Me too.
Because I'm win condition.
You're diving towers, Nathan. So obviously you love Caitlyn, right?
Yeah, they're gonna be they're gonna be low HP ideally, hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just think about those river fights or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like Caitlyn can be the worst ADC in the game in those type of situations, and it looks like it when I review some of my jungles and stuff. But then I tell them like, but it's just people get really frustrated playing around.
You got to make them come into you.
Yeah,
you know what it is.
Yeah, but people are so bored in solo queue, they don't want that, right?
Yeah. So Nathan, it's like Caitlyn has to take. She's what I call a 100% HP champion. She wants to take pretty much exclusively 100% HP trades. She wants to whittle the opponent down and not kill them and just force them to base, take tower plates, constantly dodge jungle ganks because every jungle loves ganking Caitlyn. Constantly be pressuring, but only so far that you don't get hooked by the enemy champion and die. It's just a bloody disciplined champion. Like, you need to actually be very single-minded about playing to her identity. She's one of the most impactful champs in the game if you can play to her identity. If you can push your lane, play on that perfect knife's edge, again, control mage style, poke and prod, hit the tower, and just maintain prio, she's broken.
Yeah, the champion, it's probably one of the few AD carries that can literally solo, start it early, close out a game cleanly from start to finish and has full control of the game.
100%. But the thing about that fantasy, and I call it a fantasy because it kind of is it doesn't happen very often.
That's right. Too much chaos.
And it shouldn't. It's unfair to go into the game even assuming that it will. Like that idea of I'm going to rock up bot, take 5 plates, base go top 5 plates, base mid 5 plates, take dragons, the enemy FF. It's like, that's going to happen 1 in every 50 games.
Yeah, that barely even happens in challenger games, even with really good Caitlyn players.
No, because people inject the chaos. Because that's the best way to play against Caitlyn, right? But Caitlyn's very popular. I will say might be the second most popular champion in the academy. Very, very popular. I've actually had a lot of success with Caitlyn players so far, honestly. Had a really good Caitlyn review today. Like, from shout out Giorgio and Platinum. He's putting in a lot of effort. Like, again, I love champions with clear reference points in laning phase. And Caitlyn has it. So you pretty much do the same thing with the wave, regardless of matchup. You use your abilities in the same way, regardless of matchup. You just, it's good to teach. Simple kit.
All right, Corki.
What do you think about Corki?
I think Corki is currently the best ADC in the game. Couldn't really honestly tell you why. It just does so much damage. And
so Corki is. I mean, I've been vocal about this. I hate Corki's design because I think Corki's one of those champions that inherently, it's like, it just either does not enough damage or too much damage. That's kind of how I feel with Corki. And when Corki's good in the meta, it's really good in the meta. And when it's shit in the meta, it's fucking useless.
I guess the way, because again, the design.
It's a stat checker.
Damage, right?
It's a stat checker. That's why I view Corki.
It's so hard to design and balance. Yeah, you're right.
It's hard to balance. So out of interest, so the first things first, right, with Corki bot, because I have no idea about Corki bot, is the mindset like getting close quarter combat, like Halo Blade or like PTA, whatever, like really emphasizing. Conqueror.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it QMax or is it
Emax?
Emax. Okay, so it's about like extended trades, getting in there, Wing forward,
Yep.
staying in combat with you, shredding them down.
Correct.
Okay, I see.
Playing exclusively around your E cooldown. When it's up, play aggressive. When it's down, play safe.
And what do you go items on Corki? What's the build and bot?
So I like the Jack of all trades build on Corki, where you go Triforce into Manamune into Rapid Fire Cannon with plated steel caps as your boots.
That's the OG.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you just get all the stacks of Jote or whatever, and then you just get the stats, and it's great. People go other things. Some people go Essence Reaver and drop the tier. I like the tier. I think tier suits Corki so well. I think it makes sense. So I like that build. But I ban Corki every solo queue game.
So what makes it good at the moment is just stat wise. It can just WNE.
Dude, if you ever get left alone 1v1 versus Corki, you just can't touch the wave. It doesn't matter if you're a fed Draven. Like, he's just gonna W your face. He builds HP and tankiness. I was playing a game with Biopanther. I'm gonna call out Biopanther in solo queue, and he rocked up at I think 12 minutes with a phage and plated steel caps. It's like, you motherfucker, you just rocked up with like a 2,000 HP basically worth of stats, and now I just can't kill you. And now he's just gonna play
because
war
the build
attrition.
path is so much better than a lot of like
it's like HP
items.
and armor's broken in bot lane. Like rocking it with steel caps. I just don't want to ever play in a meta where the AD carry can rush armor boots. It's just,
that's a bit weird, isn't it?
I'm like rock up's lane with like a BF sword. He's got the steel caps. I'm like, God, he's gonna have a boring time now, but he's gonna win.
Yeah,
building defensively
because he gets prior.
Yeah, he gets prior because his kit's better. His kit's better without items. He can just turn to Eon and just win.
Is there many Corki players in the academy?
There's a few, yeah. I think it's more popular in higher elo because it's a meta pick. I think in lower elo it's not as popular. But
why do you think that is? It's probably new because it just popped up. So
dude, in my experience in the academy, people play for fun. Like, they play champions they enjoy. They play champions that they
Corki's not
find
something
fun.
that is fun.
I mean, it's brand new. Like,
it's brand new. People aren't. Yeah.
The people picking Corki aren't picking Corki because they love Corki. They're picking Corki for LP.
Yeah.
For meta and just to like play what's strong.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee that it's going to stick around in bot lane anyway.
Well, that was my worry, but then I was kind of convinced otherwise that it would stick around. I can't remember who convinced me.
I think it was me.
Might have been
I said it would stick around.
Who knows? I don't know.
I think it will stick around.
I don't know how you convinced me, but I'm like fully convinced now.
I just
My
think
bad.
I just think of some. You know, remember season 3 Corki and
Oh,
ADC?
dude, that was the peak. Yeah.
I just think about that and
Corki
it
wasn't
feels
even-
the same as that.
He wasn't the same champ. He
Yeah,
had
it feels
unlimited
the
rockets,
same.
and his Q was an instant shot. Remember, it didn't have the cast.
I see.
All right, let's not talk about season 3 Corki here.
I could do that if you want.
We're in season 14. 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when we're talking season 15.
That's
now.
crazy, actually. Yeah.
All right, Jhin.
Jhin.
Okay, the first thing I'll say about Jhin is I really struggled playing with Jhin as a jungler, similar to Caitlyn.
Sounds like if you go on Nathan's team, pick Kaiser or Dodge. Honestly, don't pick Ezreal, don't pick
Ashe.
Jhin, don't pick Ashe.
Yeah.
Don't...
No
right.
Ezreal.
No,
yeah.
Jhin. I,
No
I,
MF,
I,
yeah,
like
nothing.
Jhin.
So we've got Kaiser. What do you have? What are your options if Nathan's in
No,
your
I
team?
like Jinx, Kaiser. I like Caitlyn.
Okay.
Jinx,
And
Kaiser,
that's what we've got
Caitlyn.
so far.
That's
Three
about
options,
it. Yeah.
okay.
All right, Jhin. So yeah, I struggled to play with Jhin because sort of similar to Caitlyn, Jhin can't like run at people and like follow up, if you know what I mean. Like I've realized that I need to play around his ult cooldown a lot. Like I was having way more success when I was playing around his ult cooldown.
Yeah, that's true.
And I find a lot of people because his ult cooldown's quite long, isn't it? Compared to I feel like it's quite long.
Yeah, it's
Level
fairly long.
6.
It's fairly long. Yeah.
A lot of people struggle. Like I think of a dragon fight, right?
Mm.
And I think about, let's say, like could even say like Ezreal, Jinx, like MF. If a Jhin doesn't have ult, I feel like their AD carry is way stronger than my Jhin. Is that correct?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
I think.
like I feel like they just can't walk in. They can't really do things. Like they can't. They're sort of just purely reliant on the way the fight plays out. Basically,
Yeah, it's a follow. It's a follow-up champ.
Yeah.
He's just a follow-up champ. I think Jhin is really good into squishies. The Jhin that I recommend is full lethality Dark Harvest Jhin. So if you can get ahead of the curve with that build and you start shooting a mage, that mage will pop from long range, or squishy junglers, enchanter supports, you can just kill them. But Jhin is generally just quite weak into frontline champs.
Yeah,
in
and
general.
tanks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to kill them. Even some most bruisers, it's hard, right?
Mm.
So, yeah, Jhin is not fantastic. I think that he is good in lane again. He's one of the first guides I made because he's a strong laner.
So what makes him a strong laner specifically?
He can get pushed with his Q. He can win short trades with auto Q. He can threaten people off the minions with fourth shot. He just does a lot of damage, right? Later on in the game, he just has poor DPS because he's reloading, which is just the weirdest mechanic in the game.
It is.
But yeah, he plays team fights in a very specific way.
It's very unique. That's why I think that's why a lot of the junglers that I review and stuff, because they think of the AD carry position as a certain thing, and Jhin is so different to that.
Yeah, he's like a pick champ. He's really good at following up on pick. So in an ideal world as Jhin, you're not team fighting. You're
I
actually
see.
making picks before fights
I
start.
see.
Or just like killing a straggler and then doing the objective and then resetting. You know, you're not gonna win the game if you're against a Kai'Sa and you just have a straight up 5v5 as Jhin.
Makes
It's
sense.
usually not gonna work unless you're very fed.
It's like, you know, the way you want to think about Jhin, it's kind of like Shen. Like it has a very okay, what I mean by that, like it plays the game in a very particular way, and if you know how to play with that champion, it can be very, very, very effective. But if you don't know how to play with that champion, it can just feel like the shit. Like I think of like whenever I review VODs and people play with Shen, it's like, well, why are we just team fighting ARAMing here with the Shen? You need to be playing in the side lane and leveraging the fact that you've got this ultimate. Like that's what you got to do. That's you dealing with Shen. That's what you got to do. But like, I think that's what you mean, right? In the sense that junglers just want to, they just think, oh, there's an AD carry. They're just going to do damage.
And they're going to be able to follow up
exactly.
on
But you can't think like that. You got to think in a more like nuanced way. It's like, how does Jhin specifically want to fight? And you got to play around that. It's just a unique.
He is incredibly unique.
It's just unique.
The way he deals damage is not intuitive to non-Jhin players.
That's right.
Exactly
That's why
right.
people struggle with it.
That's why people struggle with it. Exactly. Whereas again, with Kai'Sa and Jinx, they're like, plug and play. You know what they're going to do. You don't have to have even a remote understanding of the AD carry role or that champion. You just know that they're going to pump out damage.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Jhin, you know, you guys are memeing me about, well, I like Jhin on my team.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I struggled to play with it initially until I sort of understood this concept.
Well, the reason I think Jhin is actually, for me, I think a good solo queue champion is that it's just got good skirmishing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he's
a lot of
It's just good skirmishing. Like I know that if I'm in a river fight, like a 2v2, 3v3, some chaotic fight, Jin's gonna do better than a lot of other AD carries.
Yeah, he's got some CC with his W. He's got some PL with
Good
his
high
E.
burst.
Yeah, he can nuke some, like those skirmishes where one person dies fast.
Yes.
Jhin functions very well. In
Yeah,
those
that's
fights.
how I feel, and that's why
Yeah.
I like Jhin. He's just really good for those chaotic games. I feel like.
Yeah. No, Jin's good. It's just like a scaling issue. Like genuinely, Jhin just doesn't scale that well until super later in the game.
Okay, I'm gonna do just a quick tangent before we move on to Nathan's favorite champion next.
Oh God, what's this?
I
can't read the
I won't
screen.
spoil it, but do you feel like scaling is even important as an AD carry? This is a complete tangent, but like, I think it's an important question because you mentioned Jhin doesn't have that scale. Like, how important is scaling?
I mean, from my experience playing the game, I would say it's about 0% important, honestly.
No, I don't think that's
like genuinely, when I win or lose games, it's not because I win a team fight later on. Like very rarely, I would say maybe 5% of the time, am I winning off scaling. I think every champion in the game generally scales fine.
Exactly, that's what I think as well.
And yeah, it's mostly mid game, dude. Dragon numbers 2 and 3, maybe even Dragon number 4 sometimes.
Like any AD carry that's getting to 3 items is going to do more than enough damage to win the game. It's like it's about it's about how you play up until that point.
Yeah,
it's very rare. Like I'm glad you say that because I feel like it's very rare in my games. It's like, gosh darn it, they have the scaling AD carry and we don't. You know, it's like I feel like it's rare that I've ever got that internal dialogue or I'm actually ever thinking about that.
But I will say that when I do coaching, it's almost the opposite sometimes because people's mid games and laning phases aren't as precise. So no one translates leads. People flip barons. People are doing
games are more extended.
Yeah, there's just like in our games, like if one team's strong, they'll be the team to get the dragon. In other games, people forget it's even coming up. So you're just trading 2 dragons a piece, and then I open up the coaching VOD. And I see 45 minutes on the timeline. I'm like, holy moly, what happened here? You know what I mean? And like in those games, the Smolder will win the game. Yeah. because it's just so easy. But so yeah, I think we might be a bit out of touch, I guess, when it comes.
So it depends on the rank.
Yeah. But I think even like up to platinum, like platinum above, I reckon scaling like matters way less, way less. But lower ranks, below plat,
because games are going to be longer.
Because
people go
less structured, less stacking of objectives.
Yeah. But then again, honestly, I think that platinum and below, people probably aren't playing the scaling champs to their limits anyway. So I don't think it might not even matter down there as much either.
Right.
I don't know. I think there might be a few exceptions. Like Smolder might be the exception that proves the rule. Like he scales better than anyone, right?
Sort of breaks the game.
Yeah, he just like is the scaling champ.
Yeah. All right, so Aphelios was the champion, Charles. The 200 years of is that the meme? 200 years of development, right?
Yep.
200 combined years.
That's the meme.
So yeah, I think that Aphelios, from my perspective, Charles, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. Just again, spewing out the Nathan Mott narratives here.
Yep.
Hardest champ to play.
Yep.
I will be happy with a Lulu Aphelios. Terrified against the Lulu Aphelios. I understand it's a win condition, insane scaling, but outside of that, yeah, not scared of it. I know it on my team. I mean, it doesn't really ever get lane leads, honestly.
I love the way you put it to me the other day. You said it's easy to beat and easy to lose with.
Yeah, that would be my summary. So, is it hard, Charles? Is Aphelios a hard champion?
Yeah, it's hard for sure.
Okay.
It's not that hard. It's
not the hardest ADC.
It's not as hard as people think. Like I was saying, it's like Hui, Curtis. Like Hui on the surface looks like it has a billion abilities.
That I mean, okay, again, let's get specific. It's like the initial getting to the 70% mark is not that difficult.
No, I mean it's very similar to like a Caitlyn, honestly.
Getting 70, yeah, exactly.
As
but then again, min maxing and the skill cap, is incredibly high
for Hui.
Yeah.
For Aphelios, I would say it's pretty similar. Like you can get into the weeds.
You get into the weeds
in terms of like gun rotation management, multiple guns in one fight, timing your weapons for objective spawns, specific weapons to come up in certain orders. Yeah, you can get pretty freaky with it. And like, again, Rico is very big on this stuff. So Rico knows a lot about Aphelios. And he taught me some things and he's helped 80 carries in my community with it. And I just gave you a screenshot, Nathan. There's the people who get a lot of success on Aphelios.
Yeah, I was surprised. There was a gold player in the academy. He was killing it with
like
Aphelios.
literally this morning. So I'm promoted to gold playing Aphelios. So the champion, like Curtis said, when played at 70%, does a lot of damage, and honestly is quite versatile. Just a straight up like a stat stick champion, doesn't really suck ever, isn't really OP ever. There are games where like the red-white Aphelios, if we're going to like put labels on it, like red-white Aphelios is broken into those melee comps, like the Cassiopeia of 80 carries, I would say.
There's a saying, red, white, don't fight.
Yep.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
And then what's the other one? Blue something. I forgot the other one.
What's the next narrative? Next.
I love it. That's so good. We should have got with a little catch for every narrative. Yeah. But no, that
when I say red, white, don't fight, I mean like I shouldn't fight.
Yeah, you shouldn't fight the Aphelios. Yes,
it's terrifying.
So, but yeah, there's certain guns that are good in certain games, basically. So you can basically adapt your guns to be functional in any game. Is what I'm trying to say. There are some games where red white's absolutely useless, like you get outrange. But there are some you can do like a a green-blue rotation is really good into range, like for example. So yeah, I mean, Aphelios is very difficult to output damage on because of he's just an immobile carry, as you would like to say, an immobile AD carry who if someone dives on his head and he doesn't have the right guns or summoners, he will die. That's the case for most AD carries.
It's kind of like Jinx in a weird way, isn't it?
Very, very similar. Just a classic hyper carry.
Yeah.
But just has a couple of niche ability combos and like rotation stuff that can take it to the next level. But if anyone plays Aphelios over Jinx, it's probably because they simply prefer the champion's design. I personally wouldn't think of any reason to actually pick Aphelios over Jinx. Jinx is just better.
I agree.
Good.
Why? Because Jinx is Jinx is simpler.
I was gonna say I was gonna expect some like crazy answer.
Imagine a convoluted response.
I have simple responses here, guys. Jinx is you just auto attack and then you can reset.
Well,
That's true. It is easy to output
is it because
That's
but
fair.
the actual the AD carry coach enlighten us? Is it because it's just easy to get shoved with the like Jinx rockets and stuff?
Yeah,
like that?
way stronger laning phase, doesn't fall over, actually has some form of self-peel into E. Ulti is just more practical of an ability. Aphelios ulti is just a bit shit. To actually,
It's like if they're clumped up, it's like amazing, right?
yeah, the blue ulti is crazy.
Yeah.
I don't even know if many people know, but Aphelios has 4 different ults, right?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
I don't even know how Aphelios does damage.
I
I'll be
don't know.
honest. I just know
I
red,
just
but
know
yeah,
fight.
I just
Do you want me to explain it very
I
briefly?
know
Yeah,
it has
yeah.
the root. The root
Okay,
Yeah,
as
red
well.
gun is
The
life.
root's annoying.
Red gun is life.
green is the sniper.
Green is the
Yeah.
sniper.
Yes.
That means that if you tag someone with the green Q
root
or
it.
your offhand ability,
Yeah.
you will snipe them across the map, right?
Yeah.
White is the chakrams, which means over the time in a fight, you develop more chakrams and you do more damage. That's why red-white is so good, because with red, you press Q to
Sustain.
spin around, you develop all these chakrams, and then you melee range them and you throw them, right?
Do you get sustain? Isn't there healing or some shit?
No, there's healing in the red gun.
Yeah, red gun. Yeah.
Correct. With the white gun, the closer you stand physically to the enemy champion, the faster your auto attack
see.
range. Your auto attack
So
speed, sorry.
I see.
So that's why you see Jinx, Aphelios stack up their chakrams on a tower by spinning with red, switch to white, and then melee down a tower, right? Blue is the AoE ulti that you guys are talking about.
That's the cool thing.
That's
It's like
is that the flamethrower?
Yep, Infernum. Yep, the
it
flamethrower.
makes cool sounds.
Yep, it does. It is one of the most satisfying autos in
It's
the game,
so
honestly.
cool.
Like the splash damage cone autos, very cool. When you see a pentakill ulti with Jhin, with Aphelios, sorry, that's what that is. The purple gun, every auto attack applies a slow, and then if you trigger it, it stuns them or roots them, I believe, actually. So you'll see a lot of setups with the sniper and the root gun.
Yep, that makes sense.
Really good. The root ulti is also actually quite underrated as an engage tool. It's like, almost like a Varus ult in the level of engage you
Yeah,
have.
it's pretty annoying. It's pretty OP. I
Quite
think.
strong. A lot of people run cleanse against Aphelios for that reason. I think that's all the guns. I won't get into the combos. It's a bit much, but yeah, I mean the champ's just harder to deal damage on than it is Jinx. Jinx, like Nathan said, you right click their heads. With Aphelios, you kind of have to be a bit of a specialist to deal damage. I love Aphelios though. He was my most played champion a couple of splits ago. And I probably didn't even, I only got to like the 85% mark on Aphelios, and I was still having a blast on that champion. I think I was great. Very satisfying.
All right, mages in the bot lane.
Yep.
Mages as ADC.
All right, Nathan, who's OP, who's useless? Come on.
All right.
Spill your guts.
So let's talk about. So I'll say actually, Swain is a champion.
Yep.
I think is very good in the ADC position.
He's another one of those comp dependent champs, in my opinion.
Yes, I think so.
Yep.
I guess when I think about Swain, there's just certain games where I just think it's just so hard.
Yep. Rek'Sai into Swain, you
And
just
that
gotta
too as
die
well,
every.
right? Yeah.
Everything's
not
through a
fun.
Rek'Sai lens, by the way.
Yeah, everything's through a
That's what you
Rek'Sai
have to
lens.
think about.
Yeah.
That's the entire view of the game's warped around just one
But
champion.
I've played a lot of Swain. I hate versing Rek'Sai Swain. He's so immobile. Swain,
Yeah,
no,
early
no,
game,
no.
pre-6, you
No,
should
no.
die to every
Yeah,
Rek'Sai
no,
game.
but that's the thing. Like, if I don't accelerate the game and stuff like I generally
Yeah.
can't engage on that champion.
yeah,
And
later
when-
on.
yeah, later
but I feel
on.
like you're so
it's
easy
fine.
to kill. Like
No,
the
it's
easiest champ in
fine.
the game to kill.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
but in terms of like, it's what surprises me in terms of mages. Like it's pretty good. I reckon it's pretty good in the bot lane.
Yeah, I do think it's like I've played a lot of Swain, not bot. I've played a lot of Swain mid,
Yeah.
and I think that Swain does make sense in the sense that you can follow up. Like it's good follow up. Like Swain has great follow up on certain supports. A lot of AD carries are just low range.
Yeah.
So you can just
You
get a
can
free
get away with
lane,
it, yeah.
and that's what Swain is. If you get a free lane on Swain,
Yeah.
in bot, it's just like great. I get to
Oh,
scale to
he's
team
crazy.
fights. You're gonna win every dragon fight.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
And I think Swain specifically is really good in solo queue, especially in the lower ranks, because people don't play around his ult. Like I understand the concept in I can ping off. okay, we're just gonna burn Swain's ult and back off. And there's the worst champ in the game.
It's like got that whole. You've got this whole idea, Nathan, right? That I'm just trying to unpack the narratives here. You've got this whole idea that if someone has an ability where they can stand their grounds, and then like your teammates are monkeys that are gonna run in.
That's what you think.
They're
You
gonna
think
come in
it's a cage match.
Yeah.
You think it's a cage
no,
match.
That's how it is.
That's
not how
why
Solo
Nathan
do
views
it.
it, right? You know, it's like Saw, how there's like a wall that's like, and it's inevitable. Like that wall's gonna come, and they're gonna keep going forward no matter
Yeah.
what. Nathan views like his team have one direction only. There's a Swain who has art, and his team are gonna all run in.
Yeah.
There's like a Xayah, everyone's gonna run into the Xayah.
Show me that's not the case with playing against Swain, and I'll believe you, Curtis, because people run into Swain when he is ult. They try and kill him with Swain, and everyone dies.
The scariest Swain to me is when Swain has like Ghost. That's when he's unstoppable.
He's
Like,
running at you.
he runs at
Swain,
you. Yeah,
I reckon
exactly.
Swain 2 items. Right, if you get to 2 items on Swain versus a low range composition, it is one of the most fun things you'll ever have. And that's what Swain is.
Yeah.
Like, again, echoing your statement, Swain is just a niche pick. A great Swain game, you'll pop the hell off.
I think Swain's even like a free win sometimes,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah,
Pretty
that's
much.
the thing.
That's
Yeah.
coming from someone who's never played Swain. I've never played Swain before. I will need to do it at some
You
point.
need to be remotely competent and you know the reference. Okay, Swain has very clear reference points. That's what I like about Swain.
Okay.
And that's why I actually recommend Swain mid to a lot of below goal players for that reason, because it has clear reference points. You got really clear spikes, clear troughs. You got your R. Okay, cool. It's like clear trading patterns as well. Really, really clear trading patterns. So I wouldn't see any reason why not in bot as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's Swain, really. I mean, I don't really think Swain's that
One last
complicated.
thing about Swain is one thing I've noticed, because there's a lot of Swain support in bot as well. Everyone gets hit by the goddamn E. I actually have specific VOD questions about how do I not get hit by this Swain E. Because for some reason, the way that ability works and the fact that he can re-angle it by moving on the backswing, and I agree with this, it is hard to dodge that ability. I don't know, what is it about Swain E that makes it so difficult to dodge? Does that resonate with you?
I don't. No, I think if anything, that
Neo in the Matrix dodging it every
no,
time.
because like I guess I'm biased as mid laner because in mid everyone's so much higher range.
Yeah, okay.
So I think in mid it is hard to land. But I will say that is a difference maker. Like Hassam, who I'm a big fan of in EU, the best Swain in EU, the difference maker is that he lands his E's.
Okay.
It's that simple. And so like you verse good Swains, they know how to land their E, but I don't think it's a particularly hard skill shot to dodge.
Okay.
It's like REQ. It's like it's a pretty linear, like slow projectile.
You're probably talking about melee. So I'd say melee supports would get hit by it all the time. Is that what you're saying, Charles? Or
Yeah.
80 carries.
It does
literally
have that
get hit
AoE around it.
No,
but I
it's
don't,
80 carries as well.
by it. I see.
But I personally don't. I think if someone's struggling into Swain E, that means that they're just being way too linear with their last hits. They need to like.
Yeah. That's a large part of it. And it's also just moving up and down instead of side to side.
Yeah.
But I think like a support Swain who their only job in the lane is to land E and hold their E until that perfect moment is a bit scarier than a mid Swain who is maybe not doing that.
I would probably say bot Swain. I mean, mid Swain's more about Q usage, I think, because you're just not going to land your Eve very frequently.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so mage bots.
Ziggs. Now Ziggs is next. Or do you want to talk about mage bots in
Oh,
general?
we'll talk about Ziggs. So
You play Ziggs,
you've played
Curtis?
a decent amount of Ziggs as well, right,
Yep.
Charles?
Ziggs is my most played mage.
So where's your head at with Ziggs at the moment, anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ziggs is just like the default pick when your team is full AD. I think he's just like a beautiful solo AP damage source on a team because of how reliable his damage is to get off. If the enemies don't stack MR, he just is a damage nuke. I don't think he's particularly weak in any matchups, honestly. If the opponents can stack like wits ends and annoying stuff like that, he sucks. But like I said, full AD comp, pick Ziggs. Pretty plug and play, I would say. Quite easy, honestly. Quite a low barrier to entry. Like to get Ziggs to
Low
get
barrier
to
to
about
entry,
70%.
I
But
agree.
just throw the skill shot. The Q is so intuitive. Think of how intuitive that ability is.
Yep.
If you did nothing in a team fight other than throw one Q and one ulti, you've probably contributed quite well to that fight,
Yep.
honestly.
You're always going to deal damage.
And in lane, I think, again, this champion probably functions quite differently from rank to rank, but like landing a lot of Qs it happens quite a lot. In the lower ranks you get, people just run into the Q, people run into the E. W is just not an ability people even use in lower ranks, but in higher, like what I try and do with Ziggs is use your W to set up your
And your
Q.
passive autos are really important,
Yeah,
I feel
exactly.
like, as well. There's a high skill cap to Ziggs, incredibly high skill cap.
Yep.
I mean, there are like Ziggs mid players, like freaks that like, I'm like, they just make the champ look like a different champion.
Yeah.
So I agree with everything you said there. I think clear reference points. And the thing I love about Ziggs is that it's like you can just get carried so easily.
You can, yes.
Like you don't have to do anything. Like you spike, you spike really like hard on Ludens as well.
Yep.
Like when you go Ludens, you spike really hard early in the game, earlier than most AD carries. You can be weak side and strong side.
Yep.
You can, if junglers play towards you, you can burn towers, swap mid. And that's the big, and I guess this ties into the broader discussion about mage mids and why I like mage bots so well, is because when they swap to mid, you don't have the downside of having to side lane.
Yeah.
And that's why I think mage and bot as a concept is actually, if you have the damage spread,
Yeah.
it's incredibly effective. Because think about a composition, right? Let's say most AD mids want to be in the side lane. You think
Exactly
like a Yone
right.
or a
Yeah.
Yasuo or a Talon
Even
or
Zed, anything
Zed,
like that,
anything like that. They want to go in the side lane. Right? Even AD carry mids, they want to go in a lot of the time want to go on the side, like when they were AD carry mids, Tristana, they want to go side lane, right? So the great thing about that, you have a Seraphine bot, a Ziggs bot, or any of these, they don't want to go side lane in the mid game. So when you play mages in mid, you get relegated to the side lane. It's like, fuck, this sucks. Now I got to like just catch waves conservatively and play around neutrals. But then you get swapped to mid.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck yeah, my life's super, super easy.
Yeah, it's great.
Because now I'm on my key spikes. I'm getting prio on every wave. And Ziggs, if something goes wrong or the enemy, let's say your team dies, you can easily wave clear and keep your mid tower up. Super, super easy. You can wave clear mid forever. And you can also get towers super easy. So if you get tempo, you win a team fight, boom, you can get mid tower super, super easy with your passive and your W. So
Yep.
I think that's a huge benefit of Ziggs, but also mages in general. And the mage that I think is the most underrated, and shout out to Asia who highlighted this, is Seraphine.
Yeah.
Seraphine is actually, I think, is the strongest mage bot.
I
in the
agree with
game.
that. I think so.
I think it's
good.
super, super, super effective. So if you want like free LP and you want to play just a plug and play mage, you want AP, Seraphine is the way to go. You have great wave clear, beautiful utility, amazing scaling.
Scaling is insane.
And Seraphine's the biggest weakness of a lot of these champs, like Ziggs and Seraphine, again, specific Seraphine, is that your side laning is dog shit.
Yep.
And that's why Seraphine mid is so difficult to play. But Seraphine bot,
can
all
just
of
be
the
mid the entire
all
mid
of the
game.
weaknesses, the early
Yeah.
lane, you can minimize.
Makes
You
sense.
one-shots waves.
You one-shot waves, you can minimize with most AD carries because they just
Yeah.
don't have that range. It's just so easy. And dive, it's just so easy.
Yeah, but the combination of both those champions, Ziggs and Seraphine, the early play pattern, which is another reason why mages bot are good, because AD carries are so frustrated playing against them. They
do
catch,
dumb
They
shit.
catch a couple of waves. They base with tier. They TP back. They sit there with their little tier. They play out their lane for 1100 gold, whatever it is, to get lost chapter. They come back, and then the game's over.
Yep.
The lane has been nulled.
Lane's in.
It doesn't matter what items you have against them. They're just going to sit there and farm the wave now. And then
You can massively hide a skill discrepancy
yes,
in bot with a mage really, really,
it's
really
so
well.
frustrating to verse.
Like
mages,
I've
man.
like now we got Violet and stuff coaching in
Yeah.
the AD Carry Academy, and I've versed Violet many times playing AD Carry. He's infinitely better at bot lane than me.
Yeah.
There's so many times where I play versus him, and I'm just sitting there minimizing, and he can't do anything about it.
Yeah, you pick Aphelios versus Violet. It's just not going to be
Yeah,
pleasant,
exactly.
right?
I can't play an AD Carry. Any AD Carry, I'm going to get destroyed in 15
Yeah.
minutes. But if I play Ziggs, I can just sit there and I can do my job,
Yeah.
and he can't prevent me from doing my job. And even if I go down a little bit of farm, I'm still going to output a lot of damage in the
Yeah,
mid
they
game.
fit Nathan's cage match narrative. Like Seraphine, beautiful when people run into you.
Yep.
You've got the W for
Yes.
healing. You've got the ulti for AoE.
I think Seraphine is one of those champs that like, as well, like it fits, it passes the test of, it just feels annoying to verse.
I
as
think it's
well.
just broken by concept. Look, are you looking at win rates right now? Can you see Seraphine's win rate? It must be
Seraphine's,
stupidly high.
yeah, she's pretty high. I'm looking at Emerald Plus, and she's the 8th.
Yeah. Are they all? They're all mages, right?
Yeah,
the
pretty much
top
all.
ones.
Yeah, Swain's in there, Hawaii's in there, Vagar's in there,
Yep.
Brand.
Yeah, Brand is another one of those Swain style champions. Just people run into him and die.
Yeah.
Vagar's the same. Have you noticed that the champions with high win rates are often the champions that are good into full melee comps? Just because they're picked in certain spots.
Right.
That's right,
yeah,
correct. Yeah, they have pretty low play rate, but yeah.
So is there, I guess that's really it when it comes to mage bot. I don't really think. there's
Yeah,
anything
look,
else.
people can cook with mage bots. You can pretty much play whatever you want. I
But you
think.
can also grief a draft with a mage bot.
Oh, you can absolutely ruin a draft.
Yeah,
I
that's the
wouldn't. I
problem.
wouldn't really recommend blind picking them. They're hard to one trick as well. Like,
You wouldn't. You just wouldn't.
just go play mid.
You need exactly. If you're wanting to play a mage bot and you're one tricking it, you play mid.
Yeah.
But also, I think again, it fits that the whole just like niche pick. It's
Yep.
good to have as a third champ or something in your pool. Whip it out every now and then.
Yep.
Not overly, and it's different to Kalista in that sense, where it just doesn't require a lot of mastery,
Agreed.
right? Whereas again, that's the critique with Kalista. You need a lot of mastery. So
Last point on mage bot lanes is don't feel like you need one. I see a lot of people saying like, "Do I need AP in my pool to play bot lane?" It's like absolutely not. there was
Full AD
no,
comms are fine.
there was no AP bot laners in this game for like 10 years, right? You can simply just sit there and play a little Jinx Caitlyn every single game. And if your team picks full AD, so be it. You can win anyway. As we've said, scaling is pretty fucking irrelevant. So yeah, it is a misnomer that you need damage spread. It's just like you can auto win games by picking Ziggs in the games where it's good, but you won't auto lose if you don't. I think that's how I would put it.
Some honorable mentions here. We can speed run these ones. I think the Lucian, the fall of Lucian over the years, again, going back to us old school season 3 players, like Lucian was picked like every game ADC. Is it just because Lucian just has really bad range? Like
you're harkening back to the Lucian Corki meta. That was the meta for a very long time.
Yeah,
that's good.
Like Lucian just dropped off the face of the earth.
Oh, Lucian's just a meta champ. Like he's just too meta dependent. If there's metas where Lucian Nami or Lucian Melio are strong, then you'll see him rise in popularity and pro play. Then it'll trickle down.
It's just about pairings with support.
I think it's also like Lucian's misunderstood.
Didn't they nerf the Q massively? Like it wasn't that a big part of it? Because to compensate for Lucian mid, didn't they like lower the damage on Lucian Q?
I don't know exactly what they nerfed, to be honest with you, but probably. But I know that the ulti damage has been nerfed over the years because the main reason you pick Lucian is actually the ult in bot lane. Like the ult is just crazy damage. You can get it from mid prior with it. You can use 2v2 people with it. Like the whole play pattern of queuing through minions to develop a small lead and then like playing for 2v2 is just not very appealing for a lot of people. But I think Lucian Nami and Lucian Melio like actually just fucked people's perception of that champ. Because again, let's think about season 5, right? Lucian Braum was the OG. Lucian Alistar, Lucian Leona. You saw these lanes. You don't see them anymore, but they're actually good. I genuinely think Lucian's underrated as a champion. I think that pair Lucian with an engager, very simple in terms of how it deals damage. It has range issues, which again, people are scared of playing low range characters, but if you can get away with it, yeah, the champ's awesome. Does a lot of damage. I think I love Lucian.
I think that's the thing, though. People are scared with Lucian scaling into mid game because, like, you go into mid lane specifically, it can be a little bit tricky. I think that's what people are scared of.
Yeah, you need to be explosive to get mid push. You're not just going to naturally get mid push in the mid game by ordering the wave. But what you can do is if you come out of lane ahead, you can one shot the enemy AD carry on mid wave.
Yeah,
I've had that happen so many times.
And Varus. Is he item dependent?
I mean,
people
Varus
switch
has a
between
couple
the
of different
lethality builds. Yeah,
he's got like 3 builds. He's got like full lethality poke Varus. There's full lethal tempo on hit Varus with Bork, and then there's a third one where you go like Nash's Tooth, and you're like a bit of an hybrid Varus. I think they're all good. Strong laning champ. Again, I love Varus. Like coaching Varus is quite nice because he has a very clear identity of using abilities to poke people out of lane and then being explosive with the ulti at level 6. One of the best ults in the whole game. Arguably better than Ashe ulti because you can actually CC a lot of different people. People often walk in the range of the Varus ult.
A lot of burst damage.
Crazy burst damage. The empowered Q on Varus, like, because your ulti applies all the stacks of Blight over 3 seconds, right? So if you ulti someone, and then you wait for the Blight, and then you just do a W fully charged Q, you half HP people.
I think Varus is, you were talking about underrated champs. I think Varus, if piloted well,
Varus is scary.
So scary.
Yeah.
Like the threat of the R, because it's so much different to Ashe, because Ashe, it's like you Ashe R's, but it's like, you know they're not going to kill you, I feel like. Whereas like a Varus with R, it's like, fuck.
Insta-dead.
It's like they can one-shot.
Here's my counter-argument to that. Varus feels like shit.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like, you're like the worst thing.
No mobility.
Like, I love Varus, okay? I would love if Varus was fun and strong, but he's just so shit. Like, unless people play around you, you're the most immobile champ in the game.
So
I will actually put that out there.
Yeah.
I don't know why it feels that way. Maybe you have low base MS or something. You're so...
No, it's because you're kind of low range, right? Like, in a way, right? I mean, I guess you're not low range.
You know with Varus, Varus feels like you have high range. I actually don't know the range. I think it's 600. Can you maybe look that up? I think it's 600 Varus, range of Varus. So it's actually quite high range. I have more success with the poke Varus than the attack speed Varus. I think playing attack speed Varus is, again, why would you do it?
Why would you do that? Yeah, you just wouldn't play it. It's like, just play Jinx.
Yeah, but again, I have some people in the academy who really enjoy it. So they do play attack speed Varus, and more power to them for doing that. But yeah, Varus's identity, I view him as like a poke champ, right? He's like the Xerath of bot lane. If you need that, then go for it.
Yeah, I think, and I think if you play Varus in that way, it can like win you a game if you're really good at that. Like poke Varus in the right game can be really effective.
The AI says Varus has an auto attack range of 925. Is that right?
No, it's Varus Hail of Arrows. That's the E, isn't it? That's an ability.
It literally says Varus's auto attack range in League of Legends is 925.
No, that's
not
bullshit.
accurate.
It's AI.
Yeah,
it's
it's
AI.
AI,
You're getting gaslit.
Caitlyn is 650. That's the reference point.
That's the E.
Nathan, just go on the wiki.
No,
we'll,
don't worry.
we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
What was I saying? So Varus is like, feels bad, does a lot of damage, hard to play. I would say that he's pretty much like a high elo champion, I would say.
So what happened? Again, we're going to take a trip down memory
I've
lane.
never looked at an auto attack range on a champion, by the way, before. I don't know what I'm
You
looking
can
at.
tell.
I'm pretty sure it's 600, dude. What does it say?
Oh, 575.
575. There you go.
So
a bit lower.
remember back in
Maybe
the day,
Caitlyn's not 650 then. I think it is. Maybe not.
I remember like when Varus was meta.
Yep.
We'll look up Caitlyn one
I think
second.
of like T1.
Yep.
And like I think of like Bang. And it was like Xayah. It was like Ashe, Xayah. Like that was like the meta. It was
Yeah.
like a shit ton of Ashe
Yep.
and Xayah.
Yep.
And so Varus, Xayah bot lane. So
The
what?
classic trade of Ashe for Varus every fucking
So what
game.
happened? So what?
Caitlyn is 650.
Yes.
So what was it about the game in bot lane then that made champions like Varus like what? Like I know that was a long time ago, but like just out of for curiosity, so what do you think that is? Like why? So how is this is my question?
Yep.
I guess flowing on from this, a bit of a multifaceted question. How has the role and the lane of bot lane changed? Because we used to see like again we went through the Lucian was like really popular and all that, and then we went through like Varus and Ashe and like where are we and how has bot evolved over the years?
It's a good question. I think like I was saying earlier, AD carry is a role that kind of is built around items.
Oh right.
So it's often just based on which items are strong in the meta. Honestly, it's a boring answer, but it's probably the case that the strongest AD carries are the ones that can abuse the items that are the strongest, the best. Back in the day when we were talking about Lucian Corki, that was Triforce Lucian. Remember? It was Triforce Lucian, it was Triforce Corki. That's why they were played. If we're talking about Ashe and Varus back in the day, I honestly don't remember what did they used to build, Ashe and Varus. I don't recall. But maybe they both built Bork. I think they probably both built Bork.
Yeah,
Ashe
I
and
think it would
Varus.
sound like Bork.
So it was probably a Bork abusing thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it also it depends on the champions that are around them.
And
more
even the
than-
supports as well. And the junglers.
Yeah,
as well.
so
a bit of everything really.
What it would have been is probably a dragon meta because bot prio sounds like it was pretty
probably
important.
HP stackers potentially.
Yep, probably carry junglers that benefit from having more utility in the bot lane. Carry top laners even. Like I think that if I'm thinking back to that meta, it was a lot of like Jax Fiora, even like Poppy Trundle top lane. I remember a lot of like they don't have hard CC. So if you have an Ashe or a Varus in the game, it does simplify what your top side can do.
So yeah, so basically what you're saying is it's the culmination of many factors.
Yeah, the two big ones being items and filling a gap in the comp.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I want to go back to that list, Nathan. Can you bring up a list of all those shit? Because there was actually a bunch of AD carries there, but I just want to again just very simple things.
Let's just make this episode a champion episode.
Yeah, well, we only have 20 minutes left, so...
Okay, like I think a big one.
Champions, let's go down more champions.
Well, people are going to talk about Kalista.
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 Yeah. Kalista is hard. I think Kalista probably does have a bit of a scaling problem. Like, I think that if you fall behind the curve on that champion, you're screwed.
Yeah, it's the worst one from behind, in my opinion, from my experience, and yes, that is correct. You have my blessing, Charles.
Yeah, thank you.
100% agree. Go on.
I love that. There's nothing else to say. I mean, she's just a lane bully.
Lane bully.
She's like a shit of Draven. Like
Okay.
she's like Draven.
She's
Yeah,
a worse Draven.
So is this Draven?
I think she's worse than Draven.
So what is Draven then? How
Draven-
should people think about Draven?
I have an interesting take on Draven is that Draven shouldn't be played like Kalista in the sense that you should be hyper aggressive in lane. What's the most broken part of Draven's kit?
His
You guys
gold, the
Yeah.
cashing out of gold.
Correct, Nathan.
Yeah.
What? Ding, ding, ding. It's the gold cash out. So the best thing I like to tell like lower rank Draven players is just farm a massive cash
Makes
out
sense.
and then get a free kill with your ulti. Boom, the game's like pretty quite easy.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
some reason, a Draven that is like getting some early kills and trading some deaths back and forth isn't actually that.
No,
useful,
it's not
but,
that-
But
yeah.
it's the Draven that's actually 0-0-0.
So scary.
Gets 1-0, and then it's like he cashes out like 8 minutes. It's like
Yeah.
he comes back with like full item by like 7 minutes. I'm like first item's like this is insane.
That's all you want. You just want one kill.
Yeah.
When you're good. So with Draven, I just view him as a one kill champ. If you can get one kill
With
before you
stacks.
die
You
with
need
the stacks,
stacks, though.
yeah.
So 1 kill at what point in the lane phase?
Any-
5 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
I mean, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Just
Okay.
the later the better.
Yeah.
The later the better. So like,
I think Draven is so scary.
Is he just a one-trick champion, by the way?
I recommend to one trick him. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
What about Samira? Samira confuses me. What should the average person think about Samira?
Good. Isn't she just bad versus heavy range, good versus melee?
Not necessarily. She's actually not that bad versus range
Yeah, no,
champions.
she's fine.
Because she has W to block. She has-
It's true.
Nathan, your beliefs are so shallow, man. They're so easy to change.
No, I'm fine. I'm
You
serious.
convinced yourself in 0.1 second.
No, because I literally think of some times where it's like she gets onto the back line because she's
Yeah,
engaged
she's good
champions.
for squishies, dude. She's good
Yeah.
for
Is she really good in batting into high range? And then Charlie's like, oh, I think it's okay. Oh yeah, it is really good into high range.
I can think of scenarios
awesome.
where that's the case. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm either really good at controlling people or Nathan's
Yeah.
very easy to control. But no, Samira is just one of those champions where, again, she cares more about what she's paired with than what she's versed. You cannot play Samira with ranged champions, even more so than Kai'Sa. You need engage. If you've got engaged, Samira's follow-up is insane. She has very high burst damage in the early game. And she scales really good in those Death Ball 5v5 games where you can kind of stat check people and get your ulti off. But the thing that Samira's weak into is CC, right? Targeted CC especially. Literally unplayable into certain champs. Like Rek'Sai, like Malzahar, Veigar, any champ where they can just like
easily cancel,
put their hand in your face when you try and go in, like you're just screwed. So I think Samira is a good counterpick champ. I really don't recommend people one trick it. I actually have at least one person in AD Carry Academy who one tricks it. I think Nico one tricks it, and yeah, it's just not pleasant. It's not pleasant.
So you think it's just more reliant on the support that you have?
Yeah, you want to pick Samira. I mean, if you're actually drafting to pick Samira optimally, you want to pick it after you've seen all 5 enemy champions and you have an engaged support. And then if the stars align and Samira's good, then you pick it. Other than that, she's just not doing a whole lot.
So Nathan, I want to move on. I want to get to some of the questions. I don't want to do only champs.
Okay,
There's a few important questions.
We
here.
literally have 10 to 15.
Okay. So let's do
a hard 15.
some big questions here. I
Yep.
want to talk
Rapid
about.
fire.
Okay, so we got.
What's going to be the most value for our audience, Curtis?
No, I reckon ADC narratives.
Okay, let's
start with
That's
that.
the most value for Nathan.
ADC
bang for
narrative.
your buck.
Yeah, bang
What
for your buck. So
what are
some
the
people
narratives?
watching, I guess, what are some of the narratives that you've observed in your coaching
Oh,
so
yeah,
far in
okay.
the community? What are some things that bite people in the ass? Misconceptions about the role.
Okay, so number one, it's just more of an overarching one, is that AD Carry as a role is the most likely role in the game to allow people to become victims of the game. To have a follower mentality, not a leader mentality. It's very easy to fall into the trap of helping your team as an AD Carry. Rotating for bad fights, not prioritizing yourself over others, constantly like acting like you need to keep your support and jungler happy as opposed to doing what's good for you. I see this behavior all the time.
I mean, think about it. Your title is literally carry. Like you.
But people don't play.
People
It
struggle with
almost
that
has a
concept.
reverse effect because it's like people they want to be a nice carry because they want payback. They want to be nice to their jungle support.
Oh, because
so that in
will-
return they
yeah.
will get peeled and ganked and everything.
But
So they
that's
just-
That's not how.
yeah,
it
there's a lot of
works.
people who just rock up into the game and they just want to make sure everyone's like having a happy time, as opposed to like, fuck you, give me resources. I'm just gonna do what I do myself. You know what I mean? And I think that just bites people in the ass, like Curtis was saying. And it's just a narrative that pops up every single game, every single review session, basically, where people are acting against their own best interests and against their own self-interest.
So they need to be more
Selfish.
You want to be more selfish.
Yeah, generally people, yeah.
You need to learn to say no. That's obviously a big skill, etc. Okay. What else? What are some other ones that really come to mind for
that you've
seen?
observed? So the victim mentality, you think that's the biggest one? So that's two things though: victim mentality and the nice guy syndrome. Is that what we're going to call it?
It's a bit of a double whammy because what you're saying there is that they feel so. It's like it's like one is cascading into the other, right?
Somewhat,
So
yeah.
in a way. So is it it's kind of like they're saying yes to shit plays, which is then making them feel weak, which is then reiterating the fact that they're a victim in the
Correct.
game. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, well, they just don't, like, they feel like they are just a follower. They're just there to do damage. They're not there to make decisions. That's what people view the role as a lot of the time, where it's like, every dragon is dictated by whether you get pushed on the wave or not.
That's right.
Every objective take, every like jungle push is dictated by whether you have gold in your inventory or you've spent your gold. All this stuff that people don't necessarily understand. But the underarching premise of the victim mentality, right, is that like they just don't view themselves as an active participant in the game. They view themselves as like
Just like a passenger.
it's like a gun. Like my jungler and my support are the humans, and the AD carry is the physical object, the gun.
And if they don't if that human doesn't point the gun in the right direction, then we just
if the
lose.
human tries to pull the gun out the holster and the gun's not there, the AD carry is farming, then the jungler's just going to get very angry. You know what I mean? It's a weird analogy, but that's one of them. Another narrative. I had one for a moment there. I think. Hopefully this comes to me.
Pairing with support.
No. Oh yeah, rotating mid, Curtis. AD carries. struggle so much with this. What do you do after 14 minutes? I get these reviews every single time. I whip up the VOD, I look at the VOD, and at 20 minutes, there's still bot or something.
No.
So people think that like they have to lane bot because they're a bot laner. Whereas I always say like there's a couple of conditions to be met before you start moving around the map and actually playing the game.
So you actually play the game when you're mid, you're unleashed from
That's
bot.
how
Is
I
that
view
you
it, yeah.
define it? Yeah.
Once you're out of lane and you're mid and the mid swap spot,
I start playing League
or
of
even by the
Legends.
way, if the mid doesn't swap bot, I still recommend my members go mid anyway to like get stuff done and start actively playing the game unless you're getting stuff done bot. Because what would you rather? Would you rather stay bot and get nothing done, get pushed in, just slow bleed, lose while the rest of the map loses you the game, or leave bot for a little bit, go mid, contest mid push, and then go make something happen on the opposite side of the map? Like, this is the active participant thing again, is people view AD carry as like, I'm just going to sit there and farm. No, you can actually start playing the game. You can do everything any other role can do. So yeah, after the plates die bot, after you've got your first item, after one of the towers drops, or if your support is leaving you and you're just sitting there 1v2, these are all great reasons to just deploy top, have a fuck around, go fight a skirmish, go take over a mid wave, go hit the top tower, do something, you know? So I think that's something that people just don't do enough of, I think.
I feel like when I look at great AD carries, they're just so patient. It's like if there is nothing that can be done, they're okay to not do anything. Is that something that you've noticed where people AD carries are too eager to kind of do something and not okay with just like simply farming and like trying to get to a key spike or wait for the next team fight?
Yes and no. I wouldn't really put it in those terms because when you say like wait or I can't remember exactly what you said, but it's not patient. Be patient, yeah, but it's what are you doing in that downtime, which is what I think people struggle with. People generally, my understanding of it is people are uncomfortable with downtime because they physically don't know where to click their mouse. Once you give them things to do, they're very comfortable doing it. So these high level AD carries are very comfortable leaning to one side of the map and placing a really shallow ward, or going to take raptors, or
getting sneaky base or something.
Yeah, sneaky base. Even the power of simply just starting to run down the river towards where two soul lanes are, and then if nothing happens, turn back around. Like, that's better than nothing. I see a lot of, I call it doing doughies, where people just sit in mid lane, just running in circles, waiting for the next wave to arrive. I see a lot of doughies. So yeah, you're right. I think that ability to use those little mini null states, periods of downtime in the game is very important, and not hitting the fucking mid tower.
Yeah.
Because it's the easiest, fastest way to lose the game. Yeah. Is hitting the mid tower.
Okay. That's a few narratives. Like, going back to the list here, Nathan.
I have a question as well. Yep. Last hit in.
Yeah.
What have you noticed? How good is people's last hit in silver? And is that something where people just need to focus on?
It's the same as top lane. I don't think it's any really different when I coach top laners or AD carries. Similar levels of last hitting. I don't think it's a role specific thing. I think that a narrative, again, to go back to it, is people are either they fit in one or two camps. They're either I trade all the time without intention, or I literally do not trade. And I think just
there's no that fluidity in their gameplay. Yeah,
and getting people to trade around the champ's identity or trade around the wave location is also really important. So yeah, I think a narrative that a lot of people have is that I'm a scaling champ, I'm going to scale, or I'm an early game champ, I need to play like a psychopath. And oftentimes the truth is in the gray area, and people struggle with that.
I actually was reviewing and taking a look at one of Violet's coaching sessions this morning. He did in the AD Carry Academy, and it was really interesting kind of looking at it, because my observation from I think it was an Emerald. It was like an Emerald AD Carry coaching session.
Zeri player, right?
Yeah, it was Zeri player.
Yep.
And it was interesting because, okay, so I see this in mid with players, with champions that are kind of like these machine gun oriented champions, where they can't necessarily do things maybe like super proactively, but if people come in their orbit, they can deal a lot of damage.
Yep.
And so whereby this person was very mechanically competent, like they could micro and they could deal damage, and when they were in the fight, they were doing an okay job. But you can see that there was these like gaps in knowledge, but there's like, they just didn't know how to deal with this echo, play around this echo, or they just didn't know how to play around like this Nico. And then like, I feel as though sometimes, you know, again, I think this is a similarity between the role of any carry, whether you're a top or a mid or an AD carry.
Yeah.
Whereby like sometimes you need to just be okay with one of your learnings being, yeah, I just didn't factor that in.
Yeah.
Or I just didn't play well around that one ability. And it's like, sometimes you're not going to have these, like, sometimes you're not going to have some like grand
some revelation.
It's like, at the end of the day, you got to execute fights well. And sometimes that just might mean you're just not playing around one ability
that's all
or one
is.
champion or whatever the hell it might be. And that's like, you're doing everything else well. You're you're spacing all these other damage, you're outputting damage, you're weaving in autos, you're in the right place, you're even at the objective, you're leaning off midways, whatever, but you just didn't play well around this one thing.
And people struggle with this because the outcome is so drastic. They just think, oh, just bam, we just lost.
We just lose.
But it's literally
People
just
need
one
to hear
ability.
this, by the way, because for many people, Curtis, that actually can be a grand revelation because they can't see the wood through a tree, right?
That's true.
I actually had a review the other day where it was Juliet playing Caitlyn into Alistar, and I watched every single one of the deaths was getting hit by an Alistar combo. The
Great
whole
learning.
game.
It's amazing.
I'm like,
learning.
holy moly, you literally, like, they're quite good mechanically, but you seem to play around the goddamn Alistar combo. Don't walk in range of it or prepare yourself to outplay it. You will win this game.
Yep.
But got hit by it about 8 times, 8 deaths.
And that's how I kind of.
It's so simple, eh?
Yeah.
It's like literally it's very binary, right?
Yeah, and it's like sometimes that's all it takes. It's like you're doing
Yeah.
everything right. You're getting to your key spikes. You're doing everything.
Yep.
But you're just not playing around this one ability, and you need to be okay with that. AD
Yeah.
carries need to be okay.
Yes.
With their takeaway from the game, just being like, okay, now I know how to play around Alistar a little bit better.
Yep.
And that's okay. And while we're on that topic, common learning objectives. What are you noticing? And maybe this is hard to talk about generally. So if you want to quickly say below plat, above plat, what are some common learning objectives that you've been maybe
Setting.
setting?
Yeah. I would say the majority of the learning objectives are going to be lane-based to start off with for most players.
Resets.
I try and stay away from setting fundamentals-based learning objective as much as possible and try and stick to champion identity learning objectives or champ mastery learning objectives mostly. Have to keep in mind that the academy's only been out for about a month, so the learning objectives are kind of developing. But common ones are trading in accordance with your champ's identity. So Xayah, just trading more about around auto Q. MF, trading more around auto Q. Ashe, looking for more extended trades. Just making sure that they're actually doing what their champ is meant to do in the lane. Like missing warding windows on Caitlyn could be a big one. Like maybe a player is feeling unsafe with their ability to hit the enemy tower because they're simply missing key warding windows. So that can be a learning objective. Those are big ones around trading. I think resetting is one I've given quite a bit as well. Like making sure that you're resetting in accordance to the neutral objective spawning, or just actually even bigger picture than that, using the lull states to be aware of the spawn of the neutral objectives, and calling a dragon when you're ahead is actually a big one that I've given quite a lot. Just a very, it might sound like a vague learning objective to people, but it's actually really important. And it's quite a simple one that you can do in-game learning objective because you can do it in the lull states, which is helpful. I would say that swapping mid is also another in-game learning objective. When people reset post 12 minutes, as they're in base, think to themselves, can I swap mid? That's another learning objective I give people a lot to impact the game. Those are the first ones that come to mind, I would say.
Oh, that's probably a good way to wrap it up then.
Yep.
So we'll do I mean, we can do a follow-up of round 2, one episode maybe next year, or
I think we get halfway through next year would be really good to do a follow-up, see how the AD Carry Academy is evolving and new revelations. And I think if people have comments,
let us know what we missed, what you guys want to know. We've got our school community. You can ask questions in the ADC.
anything that was missed, chuck it in school community would be good as well.
I want to see a thread. What does Nathan think of this champ?
Yes, everyone's going to be so curious to see my beautiful one-sentence summary. Nothing getting into the details with AD Carry.
Pure
emotion
with ADC for me.
All right. Well, good to have Charles on for a proper episode, not behind the camera.
Yep.
I'll hide back behind the camera next episode.
Charles will go back behind the camera, chucking his little comments out about AD Carry, sprinkling it through the podcast.
Yep.
All right, guys. That's it for our ADC extravaganza episode. We'll see you guys next week.